Hey guys, tonight we're going way back, before pyramids, before writing, before anyone bothered to invent pants. You're huddled around a Paleolithic campfire somewhere on the edge of a dense forest. The stars above are absurdly bright, because light pollution doesn't exist yet, and the only things glowing are your fire and the occasional pair of eyes watching you from the trees. Tonight's story, it starts with an accident. Or maybe it was fate, or the universe's idea of a cosmic prank. Either way, you probably won't survive this, because nobody really survives being human for long, especially not in 30,000 BCE. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'm curious, what time is it for you, and what city are you listening from? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're sitting by the fire after a long day of not dying. You speared a rabbit earlier, dodged a saber-toothed whatever, and now you're watching the flames do their usual dance. One of the older foragers tosses a bundle of dried plants onto the fire, a thank you to the spirits maybe, or just trash. Nobody really questions the ritual, but tonight the smoke smells different. Not acrid or choking, but oddly sweet, warm, thick. It wraps around your head like a lazy cloud. You blink once, twice, and suddenly the stars seem closer. Not metaphorically, like literally closer. Someone giggles. You don't know who starts it. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's the usually stone-faced warrior next to you. But now the whole circle is chuckling, swaying slightly, heads tilted like sunflowers. You're not drunk. Fermented honey's still weeks away. But your thoughts are slippery. You're warm in your chest. The fire isn't just orange anymore. It's breathing blue and green edges like it's trying out new outfits. This isn't food poisoning. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't make your stomach turn or your skin crawl. This is something else. Euphoric. Curious. A weird floaty looseness in your limbs. For a second, you think you can hear what the fire is saying. Not the crackle, but an actual whispery language, one that sings directly into the soft folds of your brain. You lean in, wide-eyed, forgetting for a moment that you're supposed to be afraid of everything. Now the real fun begins. Across from you, a younger member of the group starts swaying back and forth, hands up, palms facing the sky, eyes closed. They're dancing, kind of, or maybe being moved by something, a wind that isn't there. Someone murmurs spirit touched, and for once no one scoffs. You all feel it. The air is thick and alive. A few people start humming, deep, strange tones, not words, just a shared resonance, like tuning forks bouncing off each other's rib cages. You lie back, letting the ground cradle you. The dirt's cold against your back, but you barely notice. The sky pulses. Your breath slows down. For a second, you think you're floating, just a little. And for another second, you don't care if you never come back down. Here's the real kicker. No one meant for this to happen. That bundle thrown in the fire? It probably had dried cannabis, maybe some psychoactive sage, or even proto-tobacco. There's no name for it yet. No chemistry, no taxonomy. But whatever it was, it triggered something ancient and universal in your soft, confused brain. Altered consciousness, that first shimmer at the edge of sober reality. And now you're hooked. Not in the modern sense of addiction. You're not selling your mammoth hide boots for another hit. But you want this again. The wonder, the colours, the connection, the weird, comforting idea that maybe there's more out there than survival and meat. Maybe there's a reason the stars are arranged like that. Maybe the fire is talking. Maybe the gods really do exist, and they've just been waiting for you to inhale the right thing. One of the elders, usually the buzzkill, speaks up, says this is a message, a gift, something the spirits sent down in the smoke to thank you for your offerings. Everyone nods solemnly, but someone's still giggling in the background, trying to chase the shadows like they're butterflies. So what actually happened? Historically speaking, we don't know the precise first moment humans got high, but we do know that fire and plants have long been paired in rituals. Archaeologists have found evidence of burned psychoactive substances, like cannabis and opium poppies, in burial sites and hearths that date back tens of thousands of years. So it's not just likely, it's practically guaranteed. Somebody threw the wrong plant into the fire, leaned in to say a prayer, and stood back up with their brain turned inside out. Fringe theory time. Some researchers believe early altered states may have jump-started human creativity. Language, art, religion. One trippy night around the fire might have birthed the first cave mural, or the first myth about gods with glowing eyes. They call it the stoned ape theory, the idea that psychoactive plants gave early hominids a neurological edge. No hard proof, of course, just a tantalizing whiff of possibility. And here's the debate. Did we stumble into transcendence by accident, or were we already looking for it? Some scholars argue that ancient humans deliberately sought out altered states, drawn by curiosity, not just chance. Others say it was random, a lucky inhalation followed by a long, slow evolution of ritual and meaning. You decide. Tonight it doesn't really matter. All you know is that something shifted. The fire's low now, mostly embers. A few people are asleep where they sat. One is still humming. You lie there, watching the stars blink slowly. The air is cool, the high is fading, and everything feels possible. Like the world has layers you never noticed. Like your mind isn't a cage, but a tent with the flap finally open. Tomorrow you'll try it again. Maybe on purpose this time. You wake up with your cheek pressed into the dirt, a small pine cone digging into your jaw. Everything smells like last night's fire, ashes, smoke, and something else. The memory floats back in pieces. The colours around the flames, the humming that felt like it came from your bones, the stars that weren't quite still. You sit up slowly. The camp is quiet, unnaturally so, like everyone's nursing the same unnameable feeling. Not pain, not confusion, just a kind of sacred hangover. You catch the eye of the shaman, if you can call him that. He's really just the oldest guy who knows which plants don't kill you. But right now, he looks like he's seen the gods and come back with gossip. He doesn't speak at first. He just stands, a little unsteady, staring at the blackened circle where the fire burned hottest. His face is different. Lighter, like someone unbraided all his wrinkles overnight. He squats down and draws a spiral into the ash with one crooked finger. The breath of the earth, he says softly, more to the fire pit than to you. Someone coughs. A few others start to stir. You've all been changed, and you know it. But only the shaman seems fully aware of what that change means. Last night he took the deepest breaths. Always the first to test a new root or berry, he's used to weird sensations. But even he wasn't ready. Somewhere between breath 3 and 4, his eyes rolled back. He didn't fall, but he wasn't really standing either. He just hovered there, and then he laughed. Not a little chuckle, not a polite ha. A full-throated, eyes wide open, tears down the face laugh that turned into something between a howl and a song. Everyone stopped moving. You'd never heard a sound like that before. And then he started talking to someone. Or something. You couldn't see who. His words were half chant, half gibberish, but you could feel them. It was like he was tuning into a frequency no one else had the password for. His body moved like he was dodging invisible branches, or maybe dancing with a partner no one else could see. You remember being scared, but also completely fascinated. This morning he points to the woods. The spirits live there, he says, tapping his temple, but they only come when the air burns sweet. No one questions it. The group has seen enough to know he's not just being dramatic. One of the children, small, wide-eyed, the kind who listens more than speaks, asks if the spirit said anything. The shaman nods. They showed me a cave, red handprints, eyes like suns, he pauses, and a tree that sings. The kid nods like this is totally normal. Maybe it is, because deep down, you feel something similar. Last night wasn't just weird, it was sacred. A boundary got smudged. The invisible line between your world and something else. And now it's all you can think about. You need to understand what happened. Not just because it was amazing, but because it didn't feel like a fluke. It felt like a door. Later that day, the shaman begins collecting herbs again. But this time he's pickier. He takes you with him. Says he needs someone young but not stupid. You're flattered. Kind of. He leads you to the base of a slope where wild plants grow thick and the sun barely touches the ground. He plucks a few leaves here, a few dried stalks there. He crumbles them between his fingers, sniffs, mutters, then keeps going. Eventually he stops beside a tall, straggly plant with feathery leaves and small clusters of purple flowers. He cuts a few stems, ties them together, and hands them to you. Last night's laughter, he says. You don't know the word for compound terpene profile, or THC, but your nose remembers. It's the same smell that filled your lungs and made the stars breathe. The shaman explains, in his own vague, mystical way, that certain plants open the wind inside your head, that they help your soul float above your bones. He's not trying to be poetic. He's just describing what happened as best he can in a language that doesn't yet have words for neurochemistry. Back at camp, a few others join in the collection. Not just for the next fire, but because everyone's curious now. What else have you missed, walking past these plants every day? Which ones whisper to the brain? Which ones scream? Here's the historical fact hiding in your hazy memory. Early humans almost certainly had designated plant people. Not necessarily shamans, but skilled foragers who track the effects of herbs and roots. Over generations, trial and error, sometimes fatal, built a growing library of botanical knowledge. Some of it was used for healing, some for ceremony, some, though, was for journeying. The quirky part. In some tribal cultures, the shaman wasn't just a medicine person. They were expected to be a little off, eccentric, wild-eyed. If they behaved too normally, people got suspicious, because only someone touched by the spirits would dare crawl inside a beehive or smoke moss they found under a dead bird. So the more bizarre they acted, the more legitimate their vision seemed. But here's the debate. Did the shaman really talk to the spirits? Or was he just very, very high? Modern scholars argue endlessly about whether spiritual visions are purely internal, or if there's something external being accessed. Are altered states unlocking parts of the brain? Or are they tuning into something real, something shared, something just outside normal human reach? Back in your timeline, it's almost night again. The fire's being built, the herbs are being bundled. This time people lean in faster. No one pretends it's just a ritual now. You know what's coming. A few younger ones giggle nervously. Someone drums softly with 2 bones and an empty turtle shell. You inhale. The air is sweet again. The fire whispers. And the shaman? He's already started laughing. You're kneeling in the underbrush, digging at the edge of a fallen log with a stick that might technically count as a tool. You're not alone. 3 others from the group are with you, all bent low, peering at the damp, mossy forest floor like it's trying to tell them a secret. That's because the shaman said it was time to find the winking ones. You didn't ask for clarification. Nobody did. You all just nodded solemnly, like you'd grown up knowing exactly what that meant. The truth? He's talking about mushrooms. Not the edible kind your clan gathers for stew, but a particular type. These ones are rare, colourful, and apparently they wink. Not literally, obviously. Unless you're already under the influence, in which case, sure, let's go with literally. And then you find it. Half buried in the moss, there it is. Small, red, speckled with white dots like it's trying too hard to be cute. You pick it gently. It's slightly warm from the sun, firm, fleshy. Definitely not food. It doesn't look like something you'd eat by accident. But someone, somewhere, once did. And now here you are, staring at the fungal origin story of 1,000 cosmic journeys. The shaman crouches beside you. He nods once, takes the cap from your hand and sniffs it deeply. The gods hide in strange things, he mutters, then bites a piece off and chews slowly. You wait for him to collapse or combust. He doesn't. He just sits down, cross-legged, closes his eyes and starts humming again. That same note from the fire night, low and round and infinite. 15 minutes later he's talking to a tree. Not at it. To it. Like it's an old friend he hasn't seen since mammoth season. The rest of the group exchanges nervous glances. And you? You're curious. You take the tiniest nibble. Just enough to feel brave. Just enough to feel stupid. The first sensation isn't visual. It's internal. Like your thoughts stop running in straight lines and start curling in on themselves like smoke. Time stops being a road and becomes a spiral. Your skin feels distant. Your ears are doing something weird. They're hearing colours, or maybe just exaggerating the rustle of leaves until it sounds like applause. Then the trees start breathing. You know they aren't. But tell that to your eyes. The forest is swaying. Not like wind, but like a coordinated dance. Each leaf on each branch turning at the same time, like an audience agreeing. You blink hard, but it doesn't stop. In fact, blinking seems to enhance the effect. The world is liquid. And then comes the winking. The mushroom doesn't literally wink at you, no, but you see it in your mind's eye. That same red cap, cartoonish and smug, flashes in and out of existence like it's playing peekaboo with reality. It's not scary, it's hilarious. You laugh. Hard. The others stare at you, then laugh too, even though they haven't eaten anything. Because laughter apparently is contagious across all planes of consciousness. Meanwhile, the shaman is lying on his back in the middle of a clearing, arms wide like he's trying to hug the sky. He whispers something about being inside the moon. You don't know what that means, but you get it. On some level. Historical fact check. Archaeological evidence suggests humans have been ingesting psychoactive mushrooms for at least 9,000 years, possibly longer. The famous Tassili mushroom shaman cave painting in Algeria, dated around 6000 BCE, shows a figure with mushrooms sprouting from its limbs and head. Coincidence? Doubt it. Someone ate something weird and saw something wilder, and felt the need to draw it. The quirky twist. Some ancient tribes believed these mushrooms weren't just tools. They were beings, not food, not plants, entities. Consumed not to be digested, but to be consulted. This wasn't snacking. It was communion. The idea was that you weren't just eating a mushroom. You were inviting it into your soul like a houseguest with opinions. Debate corner. Were early humans experiencing true spiritual dimensions, or just getting blitzed and overinterpreting their symptoms? Some researchers argue that the brain on mushrooms mimics religious ecstasy, leading people to believe they're touching the divine. Others counter that maybe, just maybe, these altered states are how we access something deeper. The real question isn't whether the gods are real, but whether the mushrooms are the key to seeing them. Back in your forest timeline, you're on your back now too, staring at the sky through a lace of green leaves. You feel oddly at peace, no fear, no hunger, just openness. The wind has a personality. The sun feels like a sibling. You understand the language of insects for a few seconds, then forget it entirely. The others sit in a rough circle. One's muttering softly, tracing spirals in the dirt. Another is weeping gently, not out of sadness, just out of overwhelming feeling. You get it. Everything is so much. The colours, the sounds, the sheer existence of trees. You wonder how you ever missed this before. When the effects begin to fade, the group gathers in silence. No one speaks yet. There's a reverence to it. Like something holy just happened, and everyone's afraid words will ruin it. The shaman finally stands and dusts himself off. The gods, he says, are very funny. You all nod. Yes, they really, really are. That night you don't light a fire. You don't need one. The moon is full and somehow it's enough. You lie awake staring at the stars, still half inside your head. Still thinking about the winking mushroom and the language of the ants and how trees breathe when no one's looking. You don't know it yet, but you'll spend the rest of your life chasing this feeling. Not always with success, not always safely, but something open today. Something you didn't even know was closed, and you'll never be able to fully close it again. You wake up with a mouthful of moss and absolutely no recollection of how you got there. Someone's poking your shoulder with a stick, not in an aggressive way, just checking if you're alive. You are, mostly. You roll over slowly, eyes squinting against the light, brain still unsure whether it's attached to your body or floating somewhere above the trees. Around you, the forest is quieter than usual. Not because the animals aren't there, but because your senses have gone soft and pillowy. The world is wrapped in cotton. Your head hums with the faint echo of something, music, a memory that might not be entirely yours. By the time you make it back to camp, the others are already gathered. No one's speaking above a whisper. Some are staring into the fire, though it hasn't been lit. Others are drawing things in the dirt, spirals, faces with too many eyes, long wavy figures that shimmer even though they're just dust and fingers. It's not fear in the air, it's awe. Last night you didn't get high, you left. That's the only way to describe it. You crossed some invisible line. You walked out of your body, wandered around in the great beyond, and somehow managed to crawl back in before morning. You're not alone in that feeling. Everyone's faces say the same thing. What just happened to us? The shaman is the first to break the silence. He's still covered in streaks of charcoal, eyes red like he hasn't blinked in hours. "We saw the gods," he says flatly. Then he pauses, nods to himself and amends it. "Or the gods saw us." He starts to ask what you saw, what they showed you, but before anyone can answer, a woman near the edge of the group interrupts. "There weren't any gods," she says. "I saw my grandmother. She gave me a bowl of water and told me to stop being afraid." Her voice is steady, calm. A few people murmur approval. Another speaks up. "I saw myself, but not me now. Me, after I die." Then someone else. "I saw the fire turn into a snake and it told me a story." You realize there's no shared experience, no universal vision, just a strange, tangled garden of human minds, each one opening, blooming, revealing something utterly personal and deeply weird. This wasn't just a group hallucination, it was intimate. Whatever you took, or saw, or became, didn't show you the same thing. It showed you what you needed, or what you feared. You're all still reeling from it when someone asks the big question, "Was it real?" No one answers immediately. You shift uncomfortably. The word real feels meaningless now. Was the tree you talked to real? Was the river that spoke in riddles real? Was the blue wolf that followed you through a tunnel made of stars real? You felt it. You believed it. Is that enough? Historically, that moment, right there, is the birthplace of myth. When a group of people step out of their own minds, see something impossible, and then come back and try to explain it. You can't paint a vision directly onto someone else's brain, so you describe it. In symbols, in stories, in rituals. And if enough people see similar things, or believe the stories deeply enough, you end up with a religion. The quirky twist? In some ancient cultures, dreams and visions weren't considered less real than waking life. They were more real, sharper, purer. This world was the foggy one, the dream. What you saw in your trance or your vision was closer to the truth than anything your eyes could show you in daylight. The logic went like this. If the gods want to talk to you, why would they do it in the ordinary world? They'd come in visions, in smoke, in dreams, the liminal stuff. Scholars still debate whether early humans believed in literal gods or symbolic representations of ideas, life, death, fertility, danger. But when you've seen a dancing fire serpent explain the cycle of seasons in interpretive movement, it's hard not to assign that experience some kind of meaning. Whether it's divine or not almost doesn't matter. It becomes a story, a tool for understanding the mystery that is, well, everything. Back at camp, the group begins recreating what they saw. One man picks up 2 sticks and taps them in rhythm, imitating the beat that echoed in his skull last night. The woman grabs a stone and scratches into the side of a larger rock, recreating the face she saw in the stars. You sit down and start moulding a handful of clay into a vague humanoid shape with spiral eyes and antlers. You don't know what it means, but it feels important. That evening, as the sun drops behind the treetops, the group gathers again. Not to get high, not this time, just to remember, to share, to process. The shaman sits in the center and listens as everyone takes turns describing what happened to them. He doesn't interrupt, he doesn't correct. He just nods, sometimes smiling, sometimes closing his eyes, like he's building something in his mind, a map maybe, or a growing mythology. One person saw a cave with glowing walls, another a spiral staircase leading into the sky. Someone else saw a massive bird made of fire that tore itself in half and became 2 stars. You realise you're creating something together now. Not just memory, but meaning. A collective story stitched together from private visions. And just like that, the experience starts to evolve. It becomes sacred. The mushrooms, the smoke, the songs, they're not random accidents anymore. They're doorways, rites of passage. Not for fun, not for escape, for connection, for insight, for glimpsing something larger than your single mortal self. You look up at the sky again, expecting it to look normal, but it doesn't. Not because you're still tripping, those effects faded hours ago. It just looks different, deeper, like it's holding its breath, like it's waiting for you to notice something you missed before. You don't know what it is, but you feel certain you'll see it again, maybe next time. There's a peculiar buzz in your jaw, not painful, more like a fizz. It started an hour ago when you chewed a leafy bundle the shaman gave you without any warning or context. You didn't ask what it was, nobody ever does. You've learned by now that if he hands you something, it's either medicinal, mystical, or marginally poisonous, and that somehow all 3 categories overlap more than they should. This time, though, it was bitter, sharp, left your tongue tingling like it had been stung by invisible bees, and now your lips feel numb. So does your forehead. You're pretty sure your thoughts are vibrating. You glance over at the others gathered in the dusk-like clearing. They're chewing too, slow and methodical, like cows with secrets. The shaman sits at the centre, cross-legged, grinding something between stones. Bark, maybe, or dried animal spit. He hums a low tune, the kind that sounds like it's always been playing somewhere under the world and he just tuned into it again. His eyes are glassy and focused. When he speaks, it's not a command, it's a suggestion. Spit. So, you do. You lean forward and let the wad of chewed matter fall from your mouth into the communal bowl. The rest follow. It looks disgusting. Brown, fibrous mush flecked with bits of leaf and frothy bubbles. And yet, you're fascinated. You know something is coming. Something ancient and possibly illegal in 36 modern countries. He stirs the spit mixture with a carved stick, adds a pinch of dark powder from a gourd, and begins to chant. You watch, transfixed, as the bowl begins to steam faintly, even though there's no heat underneath it. The smell that rises is earthy, sweet, with a sharp undercurrent like lightning trapped in tree bark. You're not even sure what that means, but your brain insists it's accurate. Then comes the cup. A single carved vessel passed around the circle. One by one, each person takes a sip. You're last. The gourd hits your lips. The liquid is thick and gritty and tastes like mouldy almonds and thunderclouds. You gag a little but force it down. Not because of peer pressure, but because your curiosity outweighs your survival instinct. Again. The effects are different this time. No fireworks behind the eyes, no dancing trees, just a spreading warmth low in your belly. A kind of rising hum in your blood, like you're becoming a tuning fork for the universe. Your muscles don't melt, they activate, but not in a fight or flight way. More like your body is preparing to receive something. You sit straighter, your skin is buzzing again, and then come the visions. They don't explode into your mind like last time. They ease in like smoke curling into a cave. You close your eyes, and there she is. A massive snake made of gold, coiled around a mountain. She speaks in hisses, and yet you understand her perfectly. She tells you things you didn't know you'd forgotten. The smell of your mother's hair, the way fire tastes, the song your bones sing when you sleep. You open your eyes and realize you're not alone in this. Everyone else is staring into the middle distance, faces slack, tears streaking down some of them. One man is laughing silently, one is humming, one is rocking slowly, holding nothing like it's the most precious thing in the world. This was deliberate, a concoction, brewed with knowledge passed down so many generations it predates language. You're not the first to drink it, you won't be the last. But in this moment, it feels personal, like this entire ritual was made just for you. Here's your historical fact. Early humans in the Amazon basin, and in many other parts of the world, used psychoactive brews made by mixing different plant substances, often with spit, heat or fermentation, to unlock powerful altered states. These weren't thrown together by chance. The knowledge of which plants to mix and how to process them required generations of experimentation. One famous example, ayahuasca, a potent hallucinogenic drink combining two plants that must be prepared precisely to activate their psychoactive properties. And here's the kicker. The active compounds only work when combined. Alone, they do nothing. Somehow, ancient humans figured this out without microscopes or chemical theory. The quirky twist. In many cultures, saliva wasn't just a convenient moistener. It was sacred. It carried your spirit. So when you chewed and spat into the brew, you were quite literally adding a piece of yourself to the mixture. The high wasn't just pharmacological, it was communal, a merging of minds and matter. But debate time. How did these ancient people figure out complex chemical interactions between plants without killing themselves en masse? One theory is trial and error over centuries. Another? Dreams. Shamans often claim the plants told them how to mix, brew and serve. Skeptics scoff, but there's something deeply unsettling about how many of those dream instructions turned out to be chemically accurate. Coincidence? Sure. Or maybe another kind of intelligence, plant or otherwise, was part of the equation. Back in the clearing, the shaman begins to speak again. But it's not his voice. It's deeper, echoing. Like there's another being inside his throat using his mouth as a door. He talks about the river beyond, where time sleeps and the ancestors fish with nets made of starlight. He says you've all crossed into a place where the soul can stretch its legs. He says not to stay too long. You close your eyes again. You're underwater now. No, wait, you are water. Flowing between rocks, laughing in eddies, evaporating into clouds. You are the cycle. The drink didn't just open your mind, it dismantled the walls. You're bleeding into everything, and then it fades. Slowly, regretfully, like a lover leaving at dawn. When you blink back into your body, the fire's been lit. Not the real one. No one struck a spark. But the one in your chest. The one that wasn't there before. The stars overhead look more familiar tonight. Not because they've changed, but because you have. You see them now. The shaman looks at you, and for the first time you think he might not be insane. Or maybe he is, but in a useful, holy way. That was just the first song, he says. There are others. And you believe him. You're watching goats. You weren't planning to, it just happened. You're perched on a warm rock, chewing something tasteless, staring across the valley where the herd grazes near the thorn trees. These goats aren't yours. They belong to a neighbouring tribe, the ones who wear fish bones in their hair and smell perpetually like smoked lizard. But the goats? They're entertaining, especially today, because something is wrong. Or very right, depending on how you look at it. It starts when one of them, small, brown, full of attitude, nudges past the others and starts munching on a bush with bright red berries. The kind you've always assumed are bad news. You've never seen anything eat them before, not even birds. But this goat doesn't care. It chomps away with gusto, as if it's found the secret to immortality in leaf form. And then it starts to dance. Not literally, but it hops, then spins, then bolts in a jagged zigzag before skidding to a stop and flopping onto its side like someone unplugged its consciousness. The other goats look at it, concerned but not surprised. Another follows its lead, eats the berries, stares at the sky, then lies down and vibrates like a drum. You're no expert in goat behaviour, but you've seen enough sober livestock to know this isn't normal. So obviously you do the sensible thing. You pick a berry and eat it. The taste is sharp, sour. Your mouth puckers involuntarily, and for a few seconds you regret everything. Then it hits you. First comes the clarity, a sudden lightness behind your eyes, like your brain has been scrubbed clean with a twig broom. You sit up straighter. Colours get bolder, edges sharpen. The wind stops being background noise. It becomes a full-on symphony. You can hear every movement in the grass, every flap of every distant bird's wing. Your skin buzzes, as if your body is turning into a percussion instrument. You laugh, loudly, unexpectedly. Not because something is funny, but because your ribcage is suddenly full of sunlight, and that joy needs somewhere to go. You roll onto your back in the dirt and let the sky flood into you like honey. From a distance, you probably look like just another goat. Here's your fact drop. This kind of thing actually happened. One of the earliest written records of humans observing animals getting intoxicated comes from ancient Ethiopia. Goats were seen eating the berries of a certain shrub and then acting strange. A curious goatherd tried the berries himself and found his senses sharpened. That plant. Coffee. Or at least its ancient wild ancestor. And the legend of Kaldi the goatherd was born. Whether entirely true or folkloric exaggeration, the idea remains. Humans have often discovered stimulants and intoxicants by watching the animals lose their minds first. Quirky side note, it's not just goats. Jaguars are known to chew yage vines, one of the ingredients in ayahuasca, and then roll around in a trance-like state. Elephants get drunk on fermented fruit. Reindeer seek out psychedelic mushrooms. It's not just a human pastime, it's an animal kingdom tradition. And sometimes, the animals lead the way. But here's where the scholarly debate kicks in. Did ancient humans follow animal behaviour to discover new plants? Or was it coincidence and trial and error? Some argue that watching animals offered critical cues about what was safe or stimulating. Others think that's overstated, that people just tried everything, and the animal stories came later as colourful myths to explain dumb luck. Either way, your dancing goat moment has precedent. Back in the valley, you're now surrounded by a handful of others who saw what you saw. They've joined you on the ground, each at various stages of sensory rebellion. One woman swears the clouds are forming words. Another is giggling into her palms because the grass feels like laughter. You nod, because yes, obviously. Grass is hilarious. Eventually someone suggests you collect more berries. Not because anyone needs them, but because it feels right. Important. These aren't just berries anymore. They're part of a secret, a ritual, the beginning of something. You fill a hide pouch with as many as you can find, trying not to eat all of them along the way. When you return to camp, flushed and twitchy, you deliver your pouch to the shaman. He peers inside, sniffs the contents, and raises an eyebrow. Goats, he says flatly. You nod. They knew before we did. He dumps the berries into a larger pot of collected herbs, roots, and powdery crumbles. Apparently he already has plans. That night the fire burns lower than usual. You're not tripping this time, not really. Just watching, listening. The world feels brighter, even without the berries. Your thoughts skip more than they walk. You're half convinced you can remember being a goat. Not metaphorically, literally, and that thought doesn't bother you one bit. Later, the shaman hands you a carved token made of antler. It's rough, but clearly shaped like a goat. Remember who found it first, he says, with a smile that is either very wise or very sarcastic. You nod solemnly. You will. And you do. Because the next time you're out wandering and you see a monkey eating bark or a bird nibbling something glossy and toxic looking, you'll pay close attention. You're no longer just a forager. You're an observer of the absurd, a cartographer of weird animal choices. That's where the magic hides, apparently, in goat dances and berry-induced chaos. And now you know to look for it. It starts with a smell. Sour, sweet, a little wrong, like fruit that used to be beautiful and now has opinions. You're following the scent through the underbrush, past a half-collapsed log and into a dip in the land where the trees get thicker and the air goes soft. It's not a rotting kind of stink. It's deeper than that. It smells alive. Confused, maybe. A little drunk. You crouch beside the source. There on the ground are the remains of something round and dark purple, half mushed, seeping into the soil like spilled blood. A few insects buzz drunkenly around it, lazily crashing into each other. This used to be a fruit. You can tell by the skin and the smell. Probably wild grapes. And judging by the glassy eyes of the squirrel passed out nearby, this fruit has evolved. You glance around. More of them. Fallen, half-eaten, fermenting in the sun. You didn't plan for today to be educational, but apparently nature has other plans. Naturally, you do what any sensible pre-agriculture human would do. You eat one. It's awful. Slimy, bitter, fizzy in a way that suggests it's mid-argument with its own sugars. But then, a minute later, there's a warmth. A delightful little flicker in your chest. Your shoulders loosen. The light seems brighter, the air silkier, and suddenly you have the overwhelming urge to tell someone a story. Any story. Loudly. Congratulations. You're drunk, and you're not alone. By the time you stumble back to camp, you're carrying a bundle of the fermenting fruit in a folded piece of bark like it's sacred treasure. A few people taste it with skepticism. One gags, one eats 5 in a row, the rest follow. Soon, the entire group is sitting in a loose, laughing circle, licking purple juice from their fingers and forgetting entirely about danger, responsibility, or how walking in a straight line works. This is not like the fire smoke high, or the mushroom mindscape, or the trance-drumming soul vacation. This is different. This is a wobbly, noisy warmth. You aren't travelling to the spirit world. You're just having a very enthusiastic conversation with someone about how weird bird legs are. Here's the history part. Humans almost certainly discovered alcohol long before they knew what fermentation was. All it took was ripe fruit falling, rotting slightly, and being eaten anyway. It's believed that primates, including early humans, were biologically drawn to the smell of ethanol because it signalled calories. Fermenting fruit equals energy. So we followed our noses, literally. The drunken monkey hypothesis suggests that our ancestors who could handle small doses of ethanol had a survival advantage. Partying primates, evolution edition. The quirky twist? There's evidence that some species, including elephants, bats, and even tree shrews, go out of their way to find fermented fruit, and they get visibly, hilariously intoxicated. The fruit ferments naturally from wild yeasts, and the animals, they lean into it, staggering, flopping, flapping. One researcher called it zoological revelry. Back in your timeline, the revelry has evolved. Someone stands up holding a stick like a ceremonial staff. They begin telling a story, loudly, about a snake that tried to steal the sun. The story makes absolutely no sense and is mostly just sound effects, but everyone is enthralled. Every twist is met with gasps and applause. At one point the storyteller falls down, forgets what they were saying, then invents an ending on the spot involving a turtle and a rude fish. It is without question the greatest thing anyone has ever heard. Later someone starts singing. Not well, but with passion. You join in. Why wouldn't you? The moon is out, your blood is warm, and language has become optional. Someone else is trying to dance, despite clearly not understanding what legs are anymore. The fire is roaring, or maybe that's just your ears. The point is, you feel invincible, free. connected. Until, of course, the next morning, because now your head is splitting in half, your mouth is dry as sand, and someone is snoring directly onto your face. You sit up slowly, bones creaking like old wood. The fire's out, the fruit stash is gone, everyone is groaning quietly in their own little nests of regret. You've invented the hangover. It feels like a divine punishment, and you absolutely deserve it. You crawl to the stream, drink enough water to drown, and splash your face until the world stops spinning. Someone beside you mutters, "That was amazing. Never again," which of course is a lie. By sunset, you're already planning another round. The shaman watches you from across the clearing. He's holding one of the fermenting fruits in his hand, inspecting it like it just confessed something. He doesn't eat it. Not yet. But you see the curiosity on his face. He knows what it did, and what it could become, because now it's not just a food, it's a force, and eventually someone's going to find a way to control it. To collect more fruit, let it rot just right, store it in hollowed out gourds, pour it into shallow pits to bubble under the sun. They won't know the science. They won't need to. What matters is the result. The warmth, the laughter, the forgetfulness, the courage. You may have just stumbled into intoxication. But civilization? It's already sniffing at the edges. Because where there's fermented fruit, there's a party. And where there's a party, someone's going to try and run it. You're sitting in a haze of smoke that doesn't quite belong to the fire. It curls around your nose, rich and strange, laced with something you don't remember throwing into the flames. The wood crackles like usual, but there's a second scent rising. A dry, resinous tang with a sharp, peppery undercurrent. Someone must have tossed in one of the shaman's bundles again, wrapped tight in twine and mystery. You eye it warily. Then you lean closer, because, well, you're human. Caution is a strong instinct, but curiosity is stronger. And this smoke, it's doing something. Your mind starts to sway before your body does. Your thoughts soften. Time elongates like it's made of sap. You're still upright, technically, but your awareness is floating 2 feet to the left. It's not dramatic. It doesn't yank you into visions or slap your brain across the cosmos. No, this is subtler. It's like your perception just tilts, slightly. Enough that the flickering shadows on the trees become dancers. Enough that the wind starts humming back when someone whistles. Enough that your own heartbeat feels like a second drum at the edge of the fire circle. You're not the only one feeling it. The others have gone quiet. Not the tense kind of quiet, but the dreamy, half-lidded kind. Someone is swaying slowly, hands weaving shapes in the air. Someone else is muttering what might be a song, or maybe they're talking to the smoke. It's hard to tell. The shaman, of course, is calm. Too calm. He inhales deeply, eyes closed, face turned toward the column of rising herbs. The breath of the gods, he says softly. The air they leave behind when they whisper. You're not sure what that means, but it doesn't matter. It feels true, and that's the dangerous part. See, this wasn't an accident. Not this time. The first few times, sure, some herbs fell into the fire, made everyone a little weird, and you all called it a vision. But now it's intentional. The bundles are being wrapped carefully, using specific plants. The fire isn't just heat and light anymore, it's a doorway, and someone's holding the key, that someone is the shaman, and while he's never said the words, you're starting to get the sense that he knows exactly what he's doing. Here's your historical anchor. The deliberate inhalation of smoke from burning plants has been part of human rituals for tens of thousands of years. Archaeological finds across Eurasia show ancient fire pits containing residue from psychoactive herbs, everything from cannabis to ephedra to wild tobacco. And this wasn't just for warmth or bug control. These plants were chosen for a reason. When burned, their effects were intensified and delivered straight to the bloodstream through the lungs. Quicker, smoother, more immersive. Quirky twist. Some indigenous tribes believed smoke wasn't just a delivery system. It was a being, a spirit, a traveller. You didn't inhale smoke to get high. You let it pass through you so it could see your world. The smoke had eyes, had ears. It was a messenger that moved between realms. So when people coughed and laughed and lay back with spinning heads, they didn't say, "I saw things." They said, "The smoke showed me." Debate time. Did early humans understand the pharmacology behind this? Of course not, but they understood patterns. They knew that certain leaves made the world soften, that some bundles burned too hot, and some didn't burn at all, that if you mixed one bitter root with another, it either healed your chest or made you sing to the moon. We may call it chemistry now, but back then it was intuition, and a very precise form of it. Back at your fire, the smoke begins to shift direction. It moves with a kind of will, towards certain people, away from others. You catch a full breath of it and feel your shoulders loosen. Your thoughts dissolve into ripples. You're not gone exactly, but you're not all here either. You watch the flames in front of you, hypnotized as they stretch and curl and fold into animal shapes. A bear, a bird, a fish that walks. Your mouth is dry, but your heart feels wet, soaked with some emotional flood you can't name. Someone across from you is weeping, not out of sadness. It's the kind of weeping that comes from awe, from having your soul gently unzipped by something bigger than you. You get it. You really do. Because at that moment you're not just you, you're part of the fire, part of the smoke, part of the story that the shaman is telling without words. He hums low, drawing symbols into the dirt. Spirals mostly, always spirals. The universal shorthand for we don't know what this is, but it feels big. You think about how easy this was. Just a bundle of leaves and a breath. No dancing goats, no fermented regrets. Just smoke and stillness and the quiet opening of doors. And you realise this might be the safest high yet. No seizures, no screaming. Just a soft slip into another layer of consciousness. But even that comes with a price. Because when the fire dies down and the smoke thins, the air feels empty. Hollow. Your thoughts return in pieces, sluggish and awkward. You miss the haze, miss the clarity inside the blur. The others feel it too. A collective sigh spreads through the group like wind through dry grass. It's gone. The door has closed, but now you know where it is, and that it can be opened again. You lie back on the ground, the scent of charred herbs still clinging to your skin. Somewhere in the darkness a coyote yips. A breeze lifts the last curl of smoke into the trees. You don't sleep. Not yet. You're still waiting for the gods to whisper back. You don't know who first suggested it, but now you're all standing in a circle around a flat stone with a very dead beetle on it. The kind of beetle that glistens like metal and smells faintly of peppery tree bark when crushed, which you know because someone has already crushed it. Deliberately. There's still a red smear under the shaman's thumb from when he squished it into paste and declared, "This one carries thunder." You weren't planning on snorting anything today, especially not bug dust. But here you are, watching as he grinds the beetle down with a bit of ash and dried root into a brownish powder. Nobody's joking. Nobody's backing away. Everyone just watches. Curious. Cautious. Mildly alarmed. The shaman lifts the stone, holds it up to the sun like it's an offering. "The sky lives in small things," he mutters, and for some reason, that's enough for everyone to agree this is a great idea. You crouch next to him as he sets the stone down, tilts it slightly, and shows you a narrow groove running through the powder. A path. "Breathe it like the wind," he says, and so, of course, you do. The powder stings, like dry lightning up your nose. You jerk back, blinking, eyes watering, unsure if this is how your ancestors plan to spend their morning. But then the warmth hits, slow and deep, spreading from behind your eyes down through your jaw and into your chest. Your teeth buzz, your fingers twitch. You're not hallucinating, yet, but your body feels like it just remembered something it's been trying to forget for 100 generations. Around you, others are taking their turns, sniffing, reeling, blinking rapidly. Someone sneezes and then starts laughing like they've been told the universe's most inappropriate secret. Your thoughts go sideways. Not broken, just re-angled. The world looks tilted. The trees seem taller than usual, and your own hands appear longer, more jointed, more expressive. The sounds around you overlap. Birdsong, breath, someone drumming with their feet against a log, and they blend into a rhythm you can't unhear. Your brain, bless it, decides it's time for synesthesia. You can taste colours now. The sky is salty. The fire is mint. Someone's voice tastes like copper and rain. This wasn't just a bad idea. It was a very interesting one. Historical footnote. There are beetles known to produce psychoactive or hallucinogenic compounds, especially those in the Millibrus and Epicauta families. In ancient cultures, especially in Africa, Asia and parts of the Americas, certain insects were ground into powders or tinctures, often used in ritual or medicine. These beetles secrete defensive chemicals like cantharidin, which is blistering and dangerous in large doses, but in tiny, well-controlled amounts can cause intense physical and sensory reactions. And yes, people absolutely snorted them. Quirky fact. Some beetles were used not for tripping, but for stimulation, and not the philosophical kind. Ancient Rome famously used Spanish fly, a powder derived from beetles, as an aphrodisiac, despite the fact that it's also a toxin that can destroy your kidneys. Humans have always danced on the edge of death in pursuit of novelty, and sometimes it's a beetle that pushes you over. Debate corner. Did early humans use insects in ritual because of their biochemical effects, or because of their symbolism? Beetles shed their shells. They transform. They emerge from dead things. They're creepy, shiny, alien. Many scholars argue it wasn't just the trip, it was the metaphor. A living symbol of death and rebirth, of crawling out of yourself and into something new. Back in your reality, your arms are humming. Not literally, but close. You flex your fingers and watch as they leave tiny trails in the air. Someone is doing slow circles with their hands, watching the smoke bend around them like a dance partner. Someone else is whispering poetry to a tree. The shaman somehow is floating an inch above the ground. Okay, not really. But his posture is so perfect, his breathing so slow, he feels ungrounded. He opens his eyes and they are not normal. Wide, glowing with tears. He whispers, "I can see the wings behind everything." You believe him. Because right now, the world is full of wings. Ideas fluttering, thoughts rising, shapes emerging in the corners of your vision. Not threatening, just curious. The high doesn't last long. A few hours maybe, but it's intense. You don't leave your body. You dive deeper into it. You become your bones. You hear your blood. You're the skin that holds the sky out. It's not ego death. It's ego reintegration. Like all the parts of you that were scattered by hunger, fear, and survival, are now shaking hands again. When it fades, you're tired, but not exhausted. Just soft around the edges. You sit in silence with the others, occasionally meeting eyes, sharing small, satisfied nods. No one needs to explain what happened. The beetle knows. The wind knows. You know. The shaman places the stone back on the altar, wraps it in a scrap of hide and says, "That one is not for every day." You agree. You really do. But also you're already wondering if the beetles near the river might be a slightly different colour. Maybe even stronger. Because let's face it, you've changed. You used to be just a hunter, a gatherer, a survivor. But now you're also an explorer of inside, an amateur cosmonaut of sensation, a willing test subject in the ancient science of what if. And today the answer was beetles. The walls move. That's the first thing you notice when you step into the cave, not with sound or tremors or any reasonable explanation, but with light, with feeling. They shimmer faintly, even in the dim orange flicker of the torch someone's holding behind you. It's subtle at first, just a shimmer, a twitch in the corner of your eye. You chalk it up to shadows, to soot, to being inside a hole in the side of a mountain. But then you look closer, and the walls begin to breathe. Or maybe you're the one breathing too hard. The shaman insisted you return here, to this cave, after last night's smoke-laced fire circle, and the entire beetle nose affair. You'd been hoping for a day of, well, not being metaphysically disassembled, but apparently that's off the table. The spirits are watching now, he said with a grin. They expect art. And you thought he was being poetic. He wasn't. You're here to paint. The walls of the cave are already covered in faded handprints, charcoal lines, symbols made by people who stood where you're standing now long before you were born. They left stories in red ochre and white ash, shapes that might be deer or might be gods. No one's sure. But they left them here, where time slows and echo carries forever, and now it's your turn. Someone hands you a piece of charcoal still warm from being pulled out of the fire. You crouch, hesitate, and then drag it slowly across the rock. A line. Another. You're not a trained artist, but that doesn't seem to matter. The wall is guiding you, or maybe the smoke still clinging to your clothes is doing the heavy lifting. Either way, your hand moves, and the cave accepts it. Your drawing turns into a shape, a figure with many arms, with eyes on its shoulders, with flames where its ribs should be. You don't remember deciding on any of that. It just appears. The others are working too. One woman is pressing her palm into a mix of ochre and spit, slapping handprints along the wall in a curve. Another is painting spirals around a rough outline of an animal, giving it antlers it definitely didn't have in life. No one's talking. No one needs to. Then you blink, and the walls ripple. The drawings start to move, just slightly. The figure you made leans forward, the arms undulating like smoke, the rib flames flickering in rhythm with your heartbeat. A handprint stretches, a spiral rotates. You blink again, hard, but the effect doesn't stop. The cave has come alive. Here's your historical anchor. Prehistoric cave art, some over 40,000 years old, has been found in locations that are extremely difficult to access. Narrow tunnels, deep chambers, spots where only a few people could go at once. And in many of these places the art seems to be intentionally dynamic, designed to flicker and shift in low torchlight. Recent studies suggest the artists weren't just doodling. They were deliberately creating animated experiences, moving murals powered by fire and shadow. The quirky twist. Some caves also contain traces of hallucinogenic substances, resins, psychoactive plant residue, and burned materials in hearths near the paintings. That suggests the artists may have enhanced their visions before picking up the brush. In short, they got high, went underground, and made the walls breathe. Debate time. Were these cave paintings meant to be literal? Depictions of hunts, rituals, and animal migrations, or symbolic spiritual visions experienced in altered states? Some scholars argue they were maps of the mind. Others say they were instruction manuals for ceremony. Still others believe they were part of the ceremony itself, participatory art that made the invisible visible. Back in your cave, the air is thick. The torch smokes a little, and the smoke catches the painted lines, making them wiggle and dance. The figure you drew now has a voice in your mind. Not words, more like intent. It wants you to do something, to follow it. You take a step forward, place your palm against the wall. The rock is warm, smooth, slightly damp. It feels alive. You sit down slowly, back to the wall, and close your eyes. What follows is hard to describe. You don't fall asleep exactly. You fall inward. You slide through your own thoughts, past memories you didn't know were still rattling around, past dreams from childhood, past the idea of yourself altogether. There's no vision, no spirit animal, just space. Vast, dark, comfortable. Like being inside a womb made of starlight and dirt. When you come to, the torch is lower, but the others are still here. Some are sitting silently, some are staring at their art like it's whispering back. No one looks scared, just moved. In every sense. You stand slowly. Your legs tingle. Your head hums. You touch the wall again, and your fingers feel right there, like part of the pattern. Like you've added yourself to the lineage of humans who came here to mark their minds. Outside, the night is waiting. Crickets, wind, the scent of distant smoke. You step into it quietly like leaving a cathedral, the kind where the gods aren't above you, they're behind your eyes. Later, as you lie near the fire, someone asks what you drew. You shrug, smiling. I didn't draw it, you say. It drew me, and the others nod because they know what you mean. You've got something stuck in your throat, not like a bone or a bug, more like time, or memory, or whatever it is that lingers after drinking a potion made from tree bark, honey, and bee spit. You didn't invent this drink, by the way. You just woke up one morning to find the shaman crouched over a gourd full of brown froth, stirring it with a twig and mumbling to himself about the bitter songs of bees. You should have walked away, but your curiosity as always betrayed you. Drink, he said, handing you a cup that smelled like forest breath and fermented sap, so you drank. It was awful, like chewing on a scorched broom dipped in mint and regret. Your throat tightened immediately. Your tongue rebelled. Your stomach issued a polite warning, but then came the heat, a slow burn, curling up from your gut, blooming behind your eyes, and just like that you were calm, not high, not floating, but slowed, softened. Like the world had pressed pause and left you in a warm pocket of stillness, and now, hours later, you're still stuck in that slow rhythm. Everything is syrup. You move like a leaf sinking in honey. Speech feels unnecessary. Even blinking feels optional. This stuff wasn't brewed for visions. It was brewed for quiet. Here's the history tucked in your throat. Across ancient cultures, humans have been mixing plant-based remedies to treat illness, and accidentally discovering their mind-altering side effects. Cough syrups, sedatives, and tonics weren't always clean or clinical. They were often made from bark, roots, saps, and animal parts, whatever was available and vaguely effective. Willow bark numbed pain, licorice root soothed throats, and then there was mead, the world's oldest alcoholic drink made by fermenting honey with water and herbs. Sometimes the herbs added were psychoactive. Sometimes the fermentation process got a little weird. Either way, people drank it, felt better, or felt something, and decided it was probably good medicine. The quirky twist. In some regions, bees were believed to be messengers between worlds. Their buzzing was thought to carry prayers, their hives were kept sacred, so if you drank something made by or involving bees, you weren't just hydrating, you were communing. And if the potion made your mind stretch or your heart slow down until it matched the hum of the hive, even better. But here's the scholarly debate. Were early medicinal brews meant to alter consciousness, or was it a side effect that people eventually leaned into? Some believe shamans deliberately spiked their recipes to induce trances or spiritual insight. Others argue that these effects were happy accidents, discoveries that blurred the line between healing and revelation. After all, what's the difference between curing a cough and calming a mind so it can meet the gods? Back in your reality, you're sitting beneath a tree, watching a line of ants carry away the remnants of last night's firewood. The sun filters through the leaves like a lazy kaleidoscope. You feel no urgency, no need, just stillness. You finally understand why the shaman drinks this stuff before sitting for hours staring at nothing. It's not about seeing, it's about sensing, letting the world wash over you without trying to chase or name it. Someone sits beside you, sipping from the same gourd. Their eyes are half-lidded, they're breathing slow. They don't speak, and neither do you. You don't have to. There's a language here that doesn't require words, a mutual agreement that the silence is sacred, that this space, this hum between moments, is worth preserving. And then the sound comes. It's faint, a low buzz, rising steadily. Not bees, not wind, something internal, like a song your bones remembered before you were born. You close your eyes, and the buzz becomes a vibration, Your spine turns into a tuning fork. Your chest hums. Your thoughts flatten into a single golden tone. You're not thinking, you're resonating. You realise the drink didn't put you to sleep. It woke a part of you that's usually drowned out by noise, the chatter, the movement, the constant need to be doing something. All gone. You've entered the realm of pure being, and it tastes faintly like pine and decay and honey. Eventually the buzz fades. Not suddenly. It just trails off, like a bird disappearing into the distance. You open your eyes. The world is exactly as you left it. Ants, trees, sunlight. But you're not the same. Your limbs feel cleaner. Your thoughts feel aired out. The shaman wanders over, smiling. It helps, he says, to sit with the slow things. You nod, still unable to speak. Not because your mouth won't work, but because words feel too fast for what's happening inside you. That night no one builds a fire. The stars are enough. You lie on your back, the last of the brew still lingering in your bloodstream, and listen to the insects hum. You think about the bees, about their tiny vibrating world, about how something as small as a sip can realign your entire nervous system, and you wonder, how many cures have we discovered because someone was too tired to question what they were drinking? Maybe none of this was accidental. Maybe the trees knew. Maybe the bees were trying to tell us all along. You're standing under the stars with your feet in the dirt and absolutely no idea what your hips are doing. They've taken on a life of their own. Left, right, roll, dip. It's all happening without your input, like your skeleton is trying to flirt with gravity. You glance around and realise you're not alone in this dance rebellion. The entire group is moving. Not in sync, not even close, but in that shared, unself-conscious way that only happens when everyone's slightly altered and the drum beat feels like it's being played from inside your ribcage. You don't know what plant started this. You just remember the shaman handing out something bitter that looked like dried bark and smelled like old rain. You chewed it because everyone else did, and because you've long since stopped pretending you're not going to ingest mysterious substances handed to you by a man wearing owl feathers and a necklace made of teeth. Now, the ground pulses beneath you. There's a fire, of course, but it's not the centre tonight. The people are. Someone's pounding out a beat on a stretched hide, and someone else is clapping in a rhythm that isn't a rhythm, but it works. There's no ceremony, no structure, just movement. You're not dancing to express something. You're dancing because something is expressing you, and then comes the laughter. It rolls through the group like a wind, wild, bright, unstoppable. Someone drops to the ground, clutching their stomach, howling with it. Another person is spinning in slow circles, giggling under their breath like they've just figured out the secret of the universe, and it's a really dumb joke. You don't know what's funny, but you're laughing too. Everything is hilarious. The way your knees bend, the shape of your own shadow, the fact that your elbow might be your best friend. The laughter blends with the movement, and suddenly it's a trance. The rhythm has tricked your mind into loosening its grip. You're not tripping. This isn't a full-blown vision, but your thoughts have dissolved into sensation. You're just here, in the night, in your body, in the music, and it's perfect. Here's your historical backdrop. Communal trance rituals, especially those involving dance and rhythmic sound, go back tens of thousands of years. Long before organised religion, humans were gathering in circles, stomping feet, clapping hands, and entering altered states together. This wasn't performance, it wasn't art, it was activation, a way to shift consciousness, release emotion, and connect with each other and the unseen, the quirky fact. In several cultures, these rituals involved laughter, not polite chuckling, but full-on ecstatic giggling as a sign of the spirit entering the body. Some ceremonies used it intentionally, induce laughter through herbs, rhythm, or physical exhaustion, then ride that energy into spiritual experience. Joy wasn't just an emotion, it was a doorway. But the debate? Whether this kind of group high was caused purely by substances or by psychological and social triggers. Some researchers argue that dance music and the expectation of transformation were enough to create a trance with or without chemical help. Others say the plants were key, the spark that lit the collective fire. Maybe it was both. Maybe the herb just set the stage and the dance did the rest. Back in your reality, your limbs feel made of water or wind, something non-committal. You sway without effort, laugh without control. There's a moment when you lock eyes with someone across the fire and you both burst out laughing again. Deep belly laughter that doubles you over. You have no idea why. You don't need to. Then it happens. Someone begins to hum, a low, wordless melody. Others pick it up. No words, just tone, just frequency. It weaves through the group like smoke. People dance slower now, eyes closed, smiling. Your heartbeat matches the hum. Your breath does too. It becomes a soft chant, a living song, and for a brief glowing moment, everyone is one thing. Not separate people, not even a tribe, just one. One body, one breath, one rhythm. You don't feel connected, you feel merged. No gods appear, no ancestors step through the smoke, but it's holy anyway. Eventually the energy shifts, the drums fade, the bodies slow. Some people lie down in the dirt, still humming. Some curl up together in pairs or threes, tangled in limbs and quiet laughter. You do the same, forehead pressed to someone's shoulder, arm flopped across someone else's chest. No one speaks. You're not tired. You're not wired. You're just there, completely. More yourself than usual, but also less important. You're just a note in the chord. Later, the shaman walks slowly around the group, dropping handfuls of something fragrant onto the dying embers. A spicy smoke curls up. Not enough to get you high again, just enough to bless the moment. You don't need another dose. You're still basking in the echo of what just happened. You fall asleep like that, limbs tangled, heart wide open, mouth smiling. You dream of circles, of hands drumming against ribs, of laughter that never ends. And when you wake, sore and filthy and full of sun, the memory of the dance lingers, not just in your mind, in your body. Your muscles remember the rhythm, your lungs remember the hum, and your soul? It remembers what it felt like to dissolve into joy. You're lying in a patch of tall grass, staring up at a sky so clear it almost looks fake. No clouds, just endless blue and that bright, piercing sun making you squint and think deep thoughts like, is it possible to melt from the inside out? You've been out here for hours, half asleep, because there's nothing urgent to do, and you're nursing a sore spot on your thigh from that accidental run-in with a mildly aggressive bush pig. Then she shows up. Not the shaman, not a spirit, just Tally, the youngest of the foraging girls. She's maybe 13, full of opinions, and refuses to wear anything on her feet, even when everyone else is hobbling around with cuts and splinters. She's holding something in her hand and has that look on her face that says, I found something cool, and you're not ready for it. She crouches beside you, grinning. It smells weird, she says, like sleep. This is apparently an invitation, because the next thing you know, she's pressing a bundle of plant roots into your hands. They're small, pale, tangled, and sticky with some kind of natural resin. You sniff it. It does smell weird. Earthy, sour, and oddly comforting. Like a wet blanket you didn't know you needed. I chewed one, she says casually, as if that's a thing people just do. And then I forgot how to walk. Obviously you chew it. The texture is awful, fibrous and gummy. It sticks to your teeth and floods your mouth with bitterness. You make a face. Tally laughs and lies down next to you, folding her hands behind her head like she owns the world. Give it a minute, she says, and then closes her eyes. You sit up, waiting. Then it hits, not like a wave, more like a slide. Your thoughts begin to fall sideways, slow and syrupy, into places they don't normally go. Your eyes feel too big for your head. Colours deepen, sounds stretch. You can hear ants walking nearby. You can feel the clouds moving even though you can't see them. And then the weirdest part. Your thoughts stop being private. Tally opens one eye. "You're hearing them too, right?" she says. You nod slowly, mouth slightly open, because you're not hearing voices. You're hearing shapes, emotions. The outline of someone else's thoughts brushing past yours like fish beneath a boat. It's not telepathy. Not really. Just overlap. Here's your historical anchor. Opium, derived from the poppy plant, has been cultivated and consumed by humans for at least 6,000 years, and possibly much longer in a wild form. Before anyone figured out how to smoke or refine it, they were chewing the raw resin from poppy pods or brewing it into sleep-inducing teas. Its effects were euphoric, dreamlike, and deeply addictive. Ancient Sumerians even called it the joy plant, which frankly feels pretty on the nose. The quirky twist. Poppies are beautiful. Bright red, delicate, waving in the wind like they're just dancing, not hiding something potent behind all that flair. Early humans likely stumbled onto the effects by eating the pods after the flowers wilted, either by accident or during food scarcity. One weird nap later, and suddenly your dreams start feeling more real than your waking life. The debate? Some scholars argue that the discovery of sedatives and dream-inducing plants didn't just offer rest. They opened up a whole new category of spiritual experience. Instead of intense vision-driven trips, these were soft journeys, the kind that lured people inward, toward dreams, toward the subconscious. Were the gods in the sky? Maybe, but they were also behind your eyelids. Back on the grass, your limbs feel like they've dissolved into the dirt. Your breath is long and slow, like you've been doing it for centuries. Tally is grinning beside you, eyes half-lidded, humming a tune that seems to come from inside your chest. Everything is gentle, soft edges, kind shadows. Then the dreams start and you're not even asleep. You close your eyes and watch as scenes flicker across your inner vision. Some you recognize. Your mother's hands, the fire pit, the face of that boy you used to pretend you didn't like. Others are new, a glowing tree with roots that curl around the moon, a river of stars, a voice that says, "You've always been here," and then laughs like a breeze. You open your eyes and realize it's still daylight. You haven't moved. Tally is asleep now, but smiling. You roll onto your side and let the route take you deeper, into the slow spiral of thought and memory, into that hazy space where nothing hurts and everything has a warm glow around it. Later the shaman finds you both and gives you a look. "I told her not to touch those roots," he says, but without real anger, just resignation. Then, after a pause, "Did you dream anything important?" You shrug. "I think the wind told me I'm doing okay." He nods, like that's as profound as anything he's ever heard. "Good. The poppies like when you listen. That night, you don't light a fire. You and Tally are still floating hours later. Not flying, floating. Just existing. Light. Thoughtful. You talk slowly, finish each other's sentences, drift in and out of shared dreams, and you realize something that sticks with you even after the route wears off. Sometimes the most powerful journeys don't take you to other worlds. They just bring you quietly, softly, back to yourself. The hut is full of smoke, and not in the comforting, fire-warmed way. This is the thick, eye-stinging, everyone should be panicking kind. Someone forgot to open the flap at the top again, and now the air is heavy with whatever blend of herbs and semi-ritual incense the shaman decided to burn today. You're all gathered close, too close, knees brushing, shoulders bumping, breathing each other's confusion. You can't even see across the circle. The smoke has turned the space into a cloud with walls, and inside this cloud something has begun to change. It's subtle at first. You blink, and the outline of the person next to you seems to lag behind like a bad dream. You hear a cough, but it echoes too long, like it got caught in a canyon. Someone whispers, "Is that wolf-shaped smoke?" And you laugh, because obviously that's nonsense, but then you see it too. A low form, not quite canine, crawling through the haze like it belongs here more than you do. You're not scared. That's the weird part. You should be, because this is clearly not a controlled situation. Nobody meant to hotbox the entire hut with sacred fumes. Yet here you are, quietly stunned, heart thudding in your ears, watching shapes flicker in the smoke like dancers just outside the limits of physics. And then the animals appear. Not physically, you know that. But also, maybe physically. Because suddenly everyone is seeing them, and when enough people see the same hallucination at the same time, it stops feeling like imagination and starts feeling like a shared reality. There's the wolf, white, long-legged, eyes glowing like coals. There's a bird that flaps once, hard enough that you feel wind on your face, and vanishes. And a serpent that slithers up the wall, scales shifting like firelight. One of the elders gasps and whispers a name. Not a human name, but one thick with syllables you don't use unless you're speaking to something older than time. The shaman is cross-legged at the centre, perfectly still, not guiding, just observing. He opens one eye, smiles faintly and says, "The spirits come when the ceiling is closed." Which would have been good information before someone passed out. But here's your historical anchor. Ancient smoke rituals were often conducted in enclosed spaces with limited airflow, not just for intensity, but because that environment created a sensory deprivation chamber. The smoke wasn't just a tool, it was a medium, a veil, a canvas for the mind to paint its deepest symbols. In some tribal traditions, the smoke hole was only opened after the ritual ended, to let the spirits out. Until then, everyone stayed inside, visions thick in the air, waiting for signs, stories, or something stranger. The quirky fact: there's evidence of spirit holes in the roofs of ancient dwellings designed not to vent fire smoke efficiently, but to let specific plant smoke swirl and linger. Some even had side vents covered by bark or hide that could be opened or sealed depending on the ritual. Our ancestors weren't just sitting around getting lucky with their trances. They were engineering their architecture to summon hallucinations with better acoustics. But here's the scholarly debate. When multiple people share a hallucination, same creatures, same messages, what's actually happening? Is it mass suggestion, group hypnosis, or is the brain tapping into some kind of collective unconscious, the mythic layer Carl Jung went on about? The answer, predictably, is unclear, but anthropologists agree. Shared hallucinations, especially in smoke-dense, low-light environments, are a cross-cultural constant. Different tribes, different ingredients, same wolves. Back in your hut of swirling confusion, the smoke begins to clear slightly, only just enough to see the eyes of the people around you. They're wide, soft, searching. No one looks afraid anymore. You realise you've all been on the same journey, even if no one stood up or left the hut. And now you're back, together, blinking at the fading shadows that may or may not have been actual spirits. Someone across from you speaks softly. "My animal followed me home." You smile, not because it's funny, but because you understand exactly what she means. Later, when the hut is finally aired out, and you've stumbled into the moonlight coughing and squinting, someone sketches the shapes they saw into the dirt. Curved lines, paw prints, wing patterns. Not to document them, but to thank them, to ground them in the world. You find yourself adding to the sketches without thinking, just drawing what felt real. The snout, the flame eyes, the soft tail made of mist. No one questions whether it really happened. The truth isn't in debate. The experience is what matters. That night you dream of a glowing wolf curled at your feet. It doesn't speak. It doesn't move. It just watches. And somehow that makes you feel safer than you've ever felt. In the morning there's ash in your hair and your throat is raw, but you wake smiling, because from now on you'll never sit in smoke the same way again. You're sitting in a sweat lodge that doesn't have a name yet, because the concept of naming a hut that makes you leak from every pore hasn't really caught on. It's barely big enough for 6 of you, and every inch is soaked in steam and silence. The air inside is so thick you can taste it. bitter, metallic, with a ghost of pine needles and something pungent and unfamiliar. The rocks at the centre glow red, freshly pulled from the fire outside and dropped with ceremony into a shallow pit. Every time water is poured onto them, the hiss is deafening, like the cave itself is angry. You want to run. You also never want to leave. This is your first nasal sauna, as you've jokingly called it in your head, but no one else is laughing. Everyone is breathing slow and deep, eyes half closed, limbs loose. The shaman crouches near the centre, bare-chested, eyes gleaming in the dim light as he hums low and rhythmically, like he's trying to hypnotise the heat. You're not sure what's in the bundle of the herbs he threw on the rocks. Some crushed bark, maybe a moss that smells like vinegar, possibly something he found under a dead elk and decided was spiritually relevant. But it's doing something. Something weird. Your lungs start to feel longer. Not in a dangerous way, just longer. Like your breath stretches deeper than your ribs now. Your skin is tingling. Your nose is on fire. Your ears are ringing gently, like they're picking up a signal from a distant star. You close your eyes, press your hands to the ground, and try not to drown in your own sweat. And then comes the rush. It's not a hallucination. Not yet. It's a flood of sensation. Heat, scent, pressure, rhythm, all pushing at the inside of your skull at once. The steam seeps into you, through you. You can feel it in your teeth. You open your mouth to speak, but you've forgotten how vowels work. Someone across from you starts laughing, deep and breathless, and it sets off a chain reaction. Suddenly the whole lodge is vibrating with heat and hilarity, everyone half naked and steaming and overwhelmed with how ridiculous and sacred this all feels. Then someone says, "The air is whispering," and you hear it, clear as anything. Not words exactly, more like intentions. A pulse, a feeling, the sense that the steam isn't just a byproduct, it's the point, it's the medium. You're not hallucinating in spite of the sweat, you're hallucinating because of it. Here's the historical anchor. Sweat lodges, or steam-based purification rituals, have been practiced for millennia across cultures, from the indigenous peoples of the Americas to Siberian shamans and early Nordic tribes. These were often paired with psychoactive herbs placed directly on the hot stones, turning the rising steam into a delivery system for both heat and plant compounds. A spiritual sauna, a full-body prayer. The quirky twist? Some plants only release their active compounds when heated. That means dry smoking or steeping might not work, but steaming? Suddenly your nose becomes a psychedelic gateway. It's pharmacology meets spa day. An ancient people, without chemical charts or lab coats, figured that out by sweating through it and listening very carefully to what their brains did next. Debate corner. Was the altered state from the plants or the heat itself? Some anthropologists argue that extreme temperature and rhythmic breathing alone can induce trance. No herbs needed. Others say it's the combination. The herbs open the door, but the heat pushes you through it. What's clear is that the effect isn't mild. Steam, scent, and sensory deprivation, when combined, can unstick your consciousness from its usual track and send it sliding sideways. Back inside your lodge of liquid air, your vision begins to swim, not wildly, just gently. The darkness behind your eyes glows with soft shapes. A spiral, a handprint, the face of your grandmother, young and laughing. You're not gone, you're just further in than usual. Someone begins to chant and the sound wraps around the steam, turning it into melody. You hum along without meaning to, your body thrumming with heat and rhythm, and then something shifts. You see yourself, not in a dramatic out-of-body way, but more like a memory. You're a child, curled up beside your mother, watching a fire crackle in the same circle you now sit in. You remember the weight of her hand on your shoulder. You remember the way she laughed when smoke got in her eyes. And you realise this isn't just a ceremony. It's a time machine. The steam has turned the air into memory. The The sweat has wrung the past out of your pores. You don't speak. You just sit there, humming, sweating, softening. The shaman sprinkles another handful of herbs on the stones. A new smell rises, sharper, brighter, something with pine. It cuts through the heaviness like light through thick curtains. You breathe it in and feel clarity return. The hallucination ebbs. Your limbs are shaky. Your head is light. But you are here, and somehow you feel clean. Not just physically, soul clean. Grief loosened, anger steamed out. Thoughts reshaped by heat and breath and shared silence. When you crawl out of the lodge, blinking in the light, your body feels new. The air outside is cold and delicious. Someone hands you water. You drink it like it's the first time you've ever tasted anything that wasn't fire. You lie in the grass, shivering slightly, watching clouds move across the sky, and you think about how something as simple as steam could pull you so far inside yourself and bring you back, and you know you'll go back in again. Not today, but soon, because the air in that hut still remembers your shape. You are, at this very moment, locked in a staring contest with a frog, and you're losing. Badly. Its unblinking eyes look like polished stones, wide, shiny, ancient. You're kneeling in the swamp, water up to your knees, hands muddy, and your nose full of that thick green rot stink only wetlands can conjure. The frog, glossy and motionless, is perched on a gnarled root jutting out of the muck. It doesn't look scared. It looks like it knows something you don't, and possibly never will. "Don't lick it," someone whispers behind you. You weren't going to. Probably. Maybe. But now that they've said it, the idea's lodged in your brain like a burr. You didn't crawl through this bog to admire amphibian aesthetics. You're here because the shaman sent you. Said it was time to meet the one with the colours behind its eyes. You thought that was a metaphor. You're starting to think it was a warning. And then, like it's performing just for you, the frog blinks. A single bead of thick, milky goo oozes from its back. It glistens in the sunlight, wet, viscous, slightly iridescent. You don't move. You just know this is it. This is the thing. You glance back at the others, all crouched on the shore, watching in tense, fascinated silence. No one wants to be the first, and yet, of course, it's you. You scoop the frog up gently, fingers trembling. It doesn't resist, doesn't hop, just stares at you with those deep, unholy eyes. You angle it, press the back of your knife blade lightly against its skin, and collect the milky secretion. A drop, 2 drops, onto a flat piece of bark. Someone near you exhales shakily. You're officially past the point of no return. You let the frog go. It slips back into the water without a sound, disappearing into reeds like it was never real. You carry the bark back to the circle and kneel, and then, because this is who you are now, you smear the secretion onto your upper arm. It burns, not like a cut, not like fire, like every nerve has suddenly remembered how to scream. The skin around the spot swells instantly, pulsing with heat. Your body stiffens. Your breath catches, your heartbeat ramps into an irregular, chaotic rhythm, and then, just as the pain peaks, it breaks, like a wave cresting and crashing into light. You fall backward into someone's arms, and the world detonates. Here's your historical tether. In the Amazon and other tropical regions, certain tribes have used secretions from frogs, most famously the Philomedusa bicolor, also known as the giant monkey frog, in ritual practices. The secretion, often referred to as kambo, is applied to small burns or incisions in the skin, and induces an intense, short-lived physical and psychological reaction. Vomiting, rapid heartbeat, altered consciousness, and a purging of both toxins and supposedly bad spirits. It's not a psychedelic in the classic sense. It's a full-body reset switch. Quirky twist? These frogs aren't just captured, they're invited. In traditional practice, shamans whistle to attract them, handle them respectfully, and release them after collecting the secretion. The frog is seen not as a tool, but as a teacher, a spirit. a living key to the door of inner purification. If it shows up, it means you're ready. If it doesn't, well, come back later. Debate time. Some researchers argue the frog secretion's effects are purely biological, powerful peptides affecting the nervous and immune systems. Others point to the deeply spiritual frameworks in which the practice exists and argue that it's not just the chemicals doing the work, it's the context, the ceremony, the intention, the belief that something ancient and sentient is moving through you. Back in your timeline, you're lying in the dirt, drenched in sweat, heart hammering like a storm drum. You're not seeing visions, not exactly. But you feel things shifting inside you, grief being wrung out, anger sloshing loose, fear boiling off in the heat of your own blood. You cry, you laugh, you choke on your own breath and come back gasping, wild-eyed, desperate. And then, silence. The silence is heavy, perfect, sacred. You're still, entirely. Like your body just finished dying and decided to come back new. Every sound is sharp, every smell is huge. You can hear your own pulse like a song. Someone presses a hand to your shoulder and you realize you're smiling. Later you drink water so slowly it feels like a ceremony. Someone hands you a blanket. Someone else gives you a piece of fruit. You eat it like you've never tasted anything in your life. Your hands shake. Your bones feel hollow. You look up at the canopy above and it seems kinder, less chaotic. The shaman says softly, "You've met the frog. You'll never be the same." And he's right, because from now on, you'll carry this with you. The sear of it, the purge, the raw honesty your body forced on you. It wasn't a high, it was a cleansing, and there's no going back. That night, as the others drift into sleep, you lie awake under the stars, the skin on your arms still warm where the venom kissed you. You think of the frog, its eyes, its silence, the gift it gave, and you wonder what else in this world is hiding answers on its back. You're sitting cross-legged at the edge of a dry creek bed, chewing something that tastes exactly like a foot. Not a roasted animal foot, just the general idea of a foot, if it had been buried under leaves for 3 weeks and forgotten. It's a root, knotted and dense, the kind that twists like it's been fighting with the soil its whole life. You didn't find it. The girl next to you did. She's about 14, maybe 15, barefoot, wild-haired, and full of spite in the charming way that only adolescents can be. She'd been out looking for something useful, berries, nuts, maybe a cool rock to throw at her brother, and instead she came back with this thing. She chewed it first, of course. That's her way. No one told her to. She just did it, grinned like a lunatic, then sat down and started describing how she could hear the sun. Naturally, someone had to verify that. So now here you are, chewing the same root, trying to decide if she's insane or a genius. And then the root hits. It doesn't start in your head. It starts in your mouth. The bitterness goes beyond taste, like it's speaking directly to your nerves, short-circuiting the whole idea of flavour and jumping straight into sensation. Your tongue goes a little numb, your lips tingle. Then your ears feel like they're being filled with static, but nice static, like you've just tuned into a soft-spoken God radio. Your heartbeat slows, your thoughts stretch out like shadows at sunset. You close your eyes, and immediately your skin decides to get involved. You can feel colours. No, really. The sun feels yellow. The dirt beneath you feels brown, not just in temperature or texture, but in tone. The girl beside you is green, bright, curious, chlorophyll green. You blink, and now you're seeing sound. Her laugh becomes a shimmer in the air like heat rising off stone. Someone in the distance coughs, and it echoes as a flash of soft blue light. You're not hallucinating in the traditional way. No spirits, no sky gods. But reality has undeniably reskinned itself. Like the world has decided to experiment with a new user interface. Here's your historical anchor. There are plants and roots known to produce synesthesia-like effects, where the brain's sensory inputs start crosstalking. Many of these are minor psychedelics, not full-on vision-inducing, but just enough to cause sensory blending. Early humans didn't call it that, of course. They called it seeing the wind, or hearing the trees. But the phenomenon exists across cultures, and it often starts with chewing something bitter, fibrous, and stubbornly unremarkable. The quirky twist. Some of these roots don't affect everyone the same way. In some people they do nothing. In others, they unlock a neural disco. Some tribes use them as tests. If you felt the shift, it meant you had the potential for vision. If not, well, maybe just stick to hunting. The scholarly debate. Were these effects spiritual, or just a side effect of neurochemical scrambling? Did the roots actually open a channel to higher understanding, or were they just lighting up parts of the brain that usually sleep through the day? No one agrees. But everyone agrees that the experience is real to the user, that when your senses overlap, you stop thinking about what's true and start marvelling at what's possible. Back in your own root-ridden moment, the world feels like it's wrapped in music. Not songs, just vibration, frequency. You sit with the girl in silence for what feels like hours, though it might only be 15 minutes. Every breath you take is a chord. Every blink is a ripple. When she finally speaks, her voice looks like green smoke. You see it too, she says, grinning like a toad that got away with something. You nod. Everything is talking. She leans forward, elbows on her knees. Even the rocks? You glance down at the ground. You pause. You listen. And you realise, yes, especially the rocks. You both burst out laughing, and the laughter smells like citrus and summer. When the root's effects begin to fade, it's like watching the world tuck its magic back in. Colours retreat to their assigned duties. Sound stops glowing. Texture stops whispering. But the memory of it lingers, bright and sticky. You stand slowly, legs heavy, mouth dry. The girl plucks another piece of root from her pouch and tucks it into her hair like a trophy. I'm calling it the laughing root, she announces. You nod. That's perfect. Or the colour root, she wrinkles her nose. Nah, too serious, you grin. Root that makes dirt sing, she thinks for a moment. Let's keep it between us. Grown-ups would ruin it. You agree, wholeheartedly. That night, back at camp, she refuses to tell anyone where she found it. Not because she's hoarding it, just because, for once, something belongs to her that's bigger than food or chores, or being told she's too young. The shaman doesn't press. He just watches her with a knowing look, the one that says, "You've started something, and please don't die." You lie beside the fire, still tasting the ghost of bitterness on your tongue, and wonder what other roots are out there. Roots that don't just feed the body, but rewrite how the body sees the world, and you make a quiet promise. You'll keep chewing, you'll keep listening, you'll follow the girl who tasted light wherever she goes. You're kneeling in the dirt with your hands on your knees, and your heart trying to punch its way out through your chest. Around you, people are already moving, slow at first, swaying, heads bowed, feet just barely brushing the ground. It starts like a dream, this ritual. Quiet, steady. Someone is drumming with both hands on a stretched piece of hide, and the beat is deep, repetitive, insistent. Thump, thump, thump. Not fast enough to dance to, not slow enough to ignore, just enough to get inside your bones and start rearranging furniture. You were told to fast today. No meat, no water after sunrise, nothing to dull the edge. You chewed a mix of herbs before the sunset, leaves that tasted like fire and mint and something vaguely electrical. You didn't ask what they were, you don't ask any more. The shaman gave you a look that said, "This one's not for fun." You swallowed it with your eyes closed, and now, here you are, shaking. The others begin to circle the fire. Their movements grow more intense, their feet lifting higher, arms swinging wider. No one's talking, no one's guiding it. The rhythm leads, you just follow. You rise too, hesitantly at first. Your knees creak, your stomach groans. But the beat is magnetic and your limbs are traitors. They want in. It doesn't take long before something breaks loose. Your body stops asking for permission. You lose track of what you're doing. Your arms feel like smoke. Your spine pulses with every beat. The fire blurs. The world tilts. Sweat pours from you in rivers, and your breath sounds like wind inside your own skull. You're not thinking anymore. You're gone. And then your mind leaves entirely, not like falling asleep, more like slipping out a door that wasn't there a moment ago. You don't feel your feet. You don't hear the drumming anymore. You're still moving, maybe. But it's like watching your body from a cliff across time. You're flying, or falling, or maybe just expanding. You see the earth from above, then from beneath. You see light bending in ways you didn't think it could. You see sound. You see sound. A lattice of vibrating threads, all humming with colour. And beyond all of it, a space with no direction. Just raw thought. Here's your historical anchor. Across cultures, people have used music, movement, and entheogenic plants to induce trance states that feel like death or flight. The Mazatec people of Mexico use psilocybin mushrooms in ceremonial song cycles. Siberian shamans combine drumming with plant vapors to ride the sky. In Africa, the San people entered trance through ecstatic dance, accompanied by rhythmic clapping and chants, often to heal. Across time and geography, the pattern holds. Rhythm plus repetition, plus the right fuel equals transcendence. The quirky twist. Modern studies show that prolonged drumming at specific frequencies, especially around 4 beats per second, can alter brainwave activity. It shifts you into a theta state, the same frequency associated with dreaming, deep meditation, and hypnagogic visions. Pair that with fasting, dancing, and a pinch of herbal chemistry, and you're halfway out of your body before you even notice. The ongoing scholarly debate. Are these out-of-body experiences real? Neurologists argue. They're dissociative episodes triggered by stress, motion, and neurochemical tweaks. Anthropologists counter that it doesn't matter, because what people experience in those states becomes myth, religion, medicine. Whether it's a literal soul journey or a hallucinated metaphor, it shapes cultures. Back in your body, or just near it, you're somewhere between existence and vapour. You open your eyes and realise you never closed them. You're lying on your back in the dirt. The sky is spinning. The fire is crackling, dancing in loops you can't follow. A figure stands above you. Maybe the shaman, maybe yourself. You can't tell. Their face is painted, or maybe made of paint. They hold something in their hands. A rattle, a torch, the moon. They lean down and whisper, "Break the sky." That's how you get through. And then they vanish. You don't get scared. Not even a little. Because right now, everything makes sense. Of course the sky has to break. Of course your mind has to come apart. That's the point. When you come back, it's like washing ash off your skin. Slow. Smearing. Strange. You're still lying down. The drums have stopped. Someone's crying. Someone else is laughing, but quietly now, like a secret. The shaman is crouched near the fire, adding herbs to the coals. The smell rises, sharp, clean, grounding. You sit up. Everything aches, your knees, your ribs, your tongue. You look at your hands and they still feel unfamiliar, like borrowed tools. But you're back. You think. Mostly. Someone leans over and says, "I couldn't find the way out." You nod. "I broke the sky," and no one questions it. That night the fire burns low, but no one sleeps yet. Everyone's too raw, too soft. You sit close, passing a bowl of something warm and mild, root broth maybe, to help pull you back into your flesh. Your mind still buzzes with echoes, not images, just that humming web of connection. You feel it between people now, between yourself and the stars, between your breath and the dirt beneath you. You thought getting high was about escaping, but tonight you learned something new. Sometimes you have to break yourself into light to remember you were made of it in the first place. You've made a terrible mistake. Not a fatal one, you're still breathing, but a mistake nonetheless. You're curled up in the back of a shallow cave, wrapped in your own arms, teeth clenched, sweat pooling in places you didn't know could sweat. Your heart is racing, your thoughts are shouting, and the worst part, you're stone cold sober now. Whatever miracle or madness you took last night has long since worn off, and now you're stuck in the echo chamber of your own skull, trying to remember what sanity used to feel like. This is the part no one likes to talk about. Not the colourful visions, not the cosmic insights or tree whispers or spirit animals dancing in your breath. No, this part. The crash. The come down. The moment when your brain tries to reassemble itself but puts a few pieces back in the wrong order. The feeling that you've peeled away too many layers and now the air itself hurts. Last night you overdid it. You were warned gently in that vague shamanic way. Take only what you need, he said. Not everything wants to be seen at once. You nodded like you understood, then promptly decided that need meant a handful of that reddish moss and 2 sips of that thick metallic smelling tea with the weird shimmer. It started fine, a little floating, a few shimmering shapes in the trees. You remember giggling when a rock told you a joke, although now you can't recall the punchline, but then everything sped up, or slowed down, or split into too many versions to track. And then came the fear. Not fear of anything specific, just the fear that you'd tipped too far, that you wouldn't make it back. You're not the first to feel this. You won't be the last, which is why you're here, in what's become the unofficial detox cave. A small quiet space on the edge of camp where people go when the spirits don't quite let go, and the ground under their minds gets too soft. No one mocks you for it. In fact, they bring you things. Water, cool leaves for your forehead, a blanket that smells like smoke and comfort. Someone even left a handful of berries beside you, though you can't imagine ever eating again. The girl with the laughing root peeks in once, whispers, "You'll feel better tomorrow," then vanishes before you can answer. Here's your historical anchor. Ancient rituals involving psychoactive substances often included recovery periods, days of quiet, fasting, solitude. Some cultures had dedicated huts, or designated areas for re-entry, where people could process what they'd seen, or simply survive what they'd done. The idea wasn't to avoid the crash, it was to respect it, to give the body and mind time to return on their own terms, the quirky twist. Some tribes considered the come down the most important part of the journey. That was when the real learning happened, not in the vision, but in the interpretation. When the brain began trying to stitch the experience into a story, and the soul got to decide what to keep and what to throw out. But the debate, whether these darker post-journey states were signs of spiritual transformation or symptoms of damage. Some anthropologists argue that repeated heavy use of hallucinogens led to long-term psychological shifts, some profound, others less pleasant. Were shamans mystics, or just permanently rewired? Did they live on the edge of revelation, or madness? Back in your detox cave, the day drags like wet cloth. You drift in and out of shallow sleep. Your thoughts still spiral sometimes, but the panic is dull now, tired. You press your hand to your chest and feel your heartbeat slowly returning to a reasonable rhythm. You whisper your own name, just to make sure it still sounds right. By dusk, the shaman arrives. He doesn't say anything for a long time, just sits near the entrance, watching the fading light. Eventually he speaks without turning to you. You look too far. You nod, though he's not looking. It felt like I broke something. You did. That's part of it. Did you ever get stuck? He smiles, but there's sadness in it. Yes. The first time I thought I was dying. The second time I hoped I was. You blink, caught off guard. And the third? I listened instead of asking. He tosses a small bundle of herbs into the tiny fire beside him. The smoke curls upward, faint and sharp. The plants aren't here to entertain us. They're not tricks. They're teachers, but some lessons are hard. You let that sit for a while. Later, after he leaves, you inch toward the fire and breathe in the smoke. It doesn't hit you like before. No swirling colours, no dissolving edges, just a small comfort, a grounding, the smell of wood and memory. You lean back against the cool stone wall and realise you feel clearer. Not good, not whole, but no longer in free fall. That night, you sleep hard, dreamlessly. And when you wake, the sky is still there, your body still aches, but your mind is quieter, still bruised, still wary, but present. You emerge from the detox cave like a bear blinking into spring. Someone hands you food, someone else pats your back. No one asked what happened, because they know. They've been there too. You're watching the shaman carve symbols into the dirt with a stick that looks suspiciously like it used to be part of someone's femur. He's muttering again. Not prayers this time, but something closer to instructions. You don't recognise the words. You're not sure he does either. He's in that half-possessed state he sometimes gets into, where his eyes glaze over and he starts speaking like someone else is borrowing his mouth. The others are gathered around, kneeling, quiet, hanging on every syllable. It should be sacred. It feels sacred. But there's something off, because this time he's not sharing, he's telling. You've noticed the change slowly over the past moons. At first, he was just the oldest, the one who knew which mushrooms not to eat and how to wrap a wound with spiderwebs and bark. Then he became the one who brought the visions, who lit the smoke that made the stars dance, who led you into the caves, into the dreams, into the firelit spiral of songs and shadows. And then something shifted. Now he controls the bundle, the root, the herbs. If you want to see the gods, you ask him. If you want to speak to the spirits, you wait for permission. He doesn't just guide the journeys anymore, he owns them. And you. You're starting to wonder what happens when one person corners the market on transcendence. And this morning a woman from the Northern Hunting Band arrived asking to share in the fire smoke. She brought gifts, dried meat, a carved bone flute, stories from the tundra. But the shaman shook his head. Not today, he said. The spirits are tired. She left, face hard, gifts untouched. You're beginning to think the spirits aren't tired at all. Here's your historical anchor. As early human societies began to formalize their spiritual practices, certain individuals gained influence not just through wisdom, but through control. The first shamans were guides, intermediaries. But over time, some became gatekeepers. The ones who held the rituals and the substances held power. Access to altered states became a form of leadership, and sometimes of manipulation, the quirky twist. In some ancient societies, spiritual experiences were deliberately restricted. Only certain castes, families, or genders were allowed to participate in specific rituals. The hallucinogens were sacred but also classified, kept secret, protected, even weaponized. The divine became a hierarchy. Debate time. Was this consolidation of power a natural evolution, or a corruption? Some scholars argue it was practical. If you're going to mess with someone's sense of reality, it helps to have a trained guide who knows how not to lose you in the spirit maze. Others say it was about control. Ritual leaders realized that if you owned the means to divinity, you could steer society. The drug became doctrine. The experience became dogma. Back in the camp, the shaman is drawing circles now, one inside another, inside another. You count 5 before he pauses and taps the centre with the stick. Only the centre sees the truth, he says. The rest is just echo. No one questions it, not out loud, but you glance around and see the unease rippling under the surface. The younger ones are restless. The foragers whisper when he's not around. Even the hunter with the jaguar tattoo, the one who once danced through an entire trance without blinking, is keeping his distance. Later you ask quietly if anyone knows where he's storing the bundles, the ones used to make the smoke, the tea, the sacred mix that opens the mind. No one answers, but one girl gestures subtly toward the shaman's tent, the one he now guards like it holds the moon itself. You think back to the early days, when someone accidentally threw wild sage on the fire and half the group saw glowing birds, when the vision was communal, not curated, when the journey belonged to everyone. You're not angry, not really, just wary, because it's hard to trust a guide who starts believing he owns the path. That night he lights the fire and calls for the sacred circle. You sit near the edge, the smoke rises, the rhythm begins, but the magic feels different now, heavy, calculated. You breathe it in, but your mind resists. Your body sways, but your spirit stays behind. It doesn't want to follow this time, not through him. The visions come anyway, soft and strange. You see a hand reaching through fire. You see roots growing in reverse, pulling themselves up into the air. You see yourself, older, standing in a circle that isn't this one, holding a bundle of herbs you harvested with your own hands. No permission needed. You wake before the others, clear-headed, quiet. The fire's low. The shaman sleeps sitting up, stick still in hand. You step away from the circle, into the trees, into the dark, not to run, to remember, because whatever power he thinks he has, it started with a mistake, with curiosity, with someone breathing in the wrong smoke at the right time. You're going to find your own again, without borders, without a gate. Let him keep the centre of his circles. You'll walk the edge and beyond. The path you're walking isn't a real path. It's just a slightly less tangled line through the trees, pressed down by feet and hooves and whatever else has wandered this way before. There are no markers, no signs, no destination. Just you, a hide pouch slung over your shoulder, and the last route you trusted still tucked behind your ear like a secret. You left before sunrise, before anyone could ask questions or try to follow. You're not escaping, you're trading. It started with the dried fungus, wrapped in bark, handed to you by a traveller 2 moons ago. He came from the west, beyond the river, beyond the hills, from a place where the stars look different and the animals sing at night. He didn't say much, but he smelled like unfamiliar herbs, and he had that soft-eyed stare of someone who's been very, very far away without leaving his body. You shared a fire, he shared a story. And then he gave you the fungus and said, "Tell me what your visions look like." And now here you are, stepping into new territory, unsure of what you're looking for, but certain it's not behind you. Your feet ache, your mouth is dry. But the trees begin to thin, and ahead smoke rises in lazy columns. Different smoke. Not your kind. Not fire circle smoke. This is cooking smoke. Trade smoke. There are people ahead. You approach slowly, palms out. Peace. Not just because you mean it, but because your pouch contains things that would make most people nervous. Herbs, mosses, a beetle shell, a dried frog secretion smeared onto bark. Tools? Yes, but also power. And people have opinions about who should hold power. The camp is larger than yours, busier, everyone's moving, someone's laughing. There's music, something rhythmic but strange, played on bones strung with gut. You nod to a woman by the fire and she nod back. You don't speak her language, not fully, but you hold up the fungus and her eyes light up. She calls someone over. A man approaches, older, layered in paint and feathers, and he doesn't ask your name. He just gestures to sit, and you sit. You open your pouch, slowly, lay the items between you. You're not showing off, you're offering. He watches with interest, not greedy, but precise. He recognizes most of it, ignores one thing, sniffs another. Then he opens his own pouch. Out comes a vial of red dust, a bundle of dried leaves bound with hair, a chunk of translucent resin, a pale root carved into a spiral. You stare. Some of these you know, some you don't. Some feel like they're looking back at you. This is how it begins, not with conquest, not with flags, with exchange, trade routes of the mind, silent agreements made over bone drums and smoky fire pits. You offer the beetle shell. He gives you a pinch of the dust. You hand him the laughing root. He gives you something called high, which smells like thunderstorms and makes your fingertips vibrate when you hold it too long. You stay for 3 days. You don't ask. You're just not told to leave. During that time, you watch a ritual you've never seen before. No fire, no song. Just silence, and a line of people entering a tent one by one, each carrying a stick coated in resin. They inhale the smoke, then sit in a circle without speaking for hours. When they come out, their faces are damp with tears, but no one seems broken. They seem reorganized. One night, a woman offers you a drink, warm, thick, dark like blood. You ask what's in it. She says, "Many things, some only known here." You hesitate, then sip. It's bitter, sweet, gritty. Your mouth goes numb. Your brain slows down to the rhythm of the stars. You don't see visions, but you dream vividly that night. Of rivers that speak, of birds that weep, of a mountain that hums when you walk by. Here's your historical anchor. Mind-altering substances weren't just discovered, they were shared. Archaeological evidence shows that psychoactive plants and fungi were traded across vast distances, even by societies with no written language. Ancient trade routes didn't just pass spices and obsidian, they passed experience, vision, technology of the soul. A route found only in the south shows up in ceremonial graves in the north. Seeds travel thousands of miles without explanation, except the obvious one. Someone tried it, loved it, and said, "You have to try this." The quirky twist. The value wasn't always about the high. Sometimes it was about the rarity, the reputation. Certain tribes considered unfamiliar substances more sacred because they came from elsewhere. The unknown added mystery. The traveller's vision became a passport, even if it tasted awful. Debate corner. How did these trade routes form without maps or compasses? Some researchers say ritual gatherings, like early psychedelic conferences, allowed for knowledge sharing. Others suggest marriage exchanges, wandering shamans, or simple curiosity. But the conclusion is the same. Humans didn't hoard transcendence. They packed it, carried it, and shared it. On your last morning, you give the old man a carved bead from your necklace, a spiral design burned into it with ember and wire. He accepts it solemnly, then presses something small into your palm, a stone disc painted with a pattern of dots in red and white. "For when you forget the shape of your breath," he says, "you don't understand what it means, not yet, but you carry it with you anyway." As you walk back through the woods, pouch now twice as heavy with herbs and meaning, you realize you haven't just brought back ingredients. You've brought ideas, new ways of seeing, new methods, new caution. Your camp will ask questions. Some will be wary, some will be thrilled, some won't understand at all, but you'll tell them anyway, because the journey didn't start with you, and it doesn't end here. You come back expecting questions. What you get is silence. Not the awkward kind, not yet. Just a collective stillness as everyone looks at you and your pouch and your face, and waits to see if you've returned with something divine or something dangerous. Probably both. The shaman is nowhere to be seen. That's the first thing you notice. Usually he's front and center when someone returns from a journey, arms folded, eyes narrowed, radiating either approval or passive-aggressive thunderclouds, but now, nothing, just the wind, just the eyes of your people, wide and patient. You unpack slowly, with care. A few items go to the center mat, the red dust, the resin chunk, the painted stone. You don't say anything. You just place them there like offerings and step back. One of the elders leans forward, sniffs the resin, then looks at you sharply. "This isn't ours," she says. You nod. "It is now." And that's when the trouble starts. It begins with a whispered question. "Who gave it to you?" Then, "Did you ask the spirits before bringing it here?" And then louder, "Did the shaman approve this?" You knew this would happen. You knew walking in with foreign medicine would shift something, but you didn't realize how quickly it would divide. People begin to form quiet clumps. Some are curious, leaning in, reaching out to touch the new pieces. Others stay back, arms crossed, lips tight. The ones who've had the strongest visions in the past, those most loyal to the shaman's guidance, they look especially uncomfortable. And then finally he arrives. He doesn't say anything at first, just walks to the fire and sits down, slowly, like a storm cloud settling onto the horizon. His eyes sweep the new items with a practiced kind of indifference, like he's seen this exact moment before in a dream and hated it then too. When he speaks, it's soft, measured. You went beyond the edge. You nod. I came back. And you brought strangers with you. No, you say, voice steady. I brought gifts. He studies you for a long time. The camp is silent again. The fire pops softly, like it's clearing its throat. This path was already enough, he says. You've muddied it. Here's your historical anchor. As tribal and early religious structures solidified, challenges to authority, especially spiritual authority, were met with resistance. Not because of ego, at least not openly, but because of risk. The introduction of foreign rites, plants or practices was often seen as a threat to communal cohesion. Who controlled the sacred substances, the initiation, the mystery? That determined who controlled everything. The quirky twist? Some societies welcomed new visions, others suppressed them. The difference often came down to how scared the leaders were of losing their grip on narrative. In Mesoamerica, the introduction of new entheogens could shift entire ceremonial calendars. In others, like certain island cultures, foreign intoxicants were banned outright, believed to anger ancestral spirits or dilute tribal identity. The debate: was the opposition really about safety or power? Did shamans block new rituals to protect people from the unknown, or to preserve their own status? Anthropologists are still arguing, but the records show that when a new drug or ritual emerged, it almost always triggered a fight. Not over the plant itself, but over who got to decide what it meant. Back in camp, things escalate fast. One of the younger foragers speaks up. Why not try it? Another. The spirits speak in many voices. And then, from a quiet corner, someone mutters, maybe the shaman doesn't hear them anymore. That lands like a rock in still water. The shaman rises slowly, not angrily, just tired. If you want new gods, he says, then follow them, but don't expect the old ones to welcome you back. And just like that, he walks away. The circle doesn't break immediately. No one cheers, no one moves. It's a fracture. Not a clean split, but the kind that runs under everything, quiet and deep. The new tools sit in the dirt, untouched, as if glowing with potential and risk. You stay kneeling, heart thudding, watching the lines being drawn, not with weapons, but with questions. That night a second fire is lit, smaller off to the side. You sit by it with a handful of others, those willing to test the new things, or at least talk about them. You pass the resin around, sniff the dust. Tell stories about what the other tribe did, what you saw, what it felt like to be treated as a guest instead of a student. Someone asks if you're starting a new ritual. You pause, then say, I'm not starting anything. I'm remembering something older. The next day, the shaman's fire burns as usual. His circle gathers, but so does yours, not in rebellion, in curiosity. And that, as it turns out, is even more dangerous. It starts with a misunderstanding, not a big one, just a spark, an offhand remark maybe, or a look that lingers too long in the wrong direction. Two members of the old circle accuse someone from the new one of stealing herbs. Not the sacred ones, not even the strong ones, just dried leaves used for burning during weather prayers. It's petty, but it sticks. That night, someone spits in the dust during your fire circle and walks away without a word. The next morning, someone from your group finds their sleeping mat soaked with urine. You laugh it off. At first, because what else do? You say it's just friction. Change is hard. People cling to what they know. But by the end of the week, 3 arguments have broken out, 2 bundles of herbs have gone missing, and 1 elder has officially declared your circle spiritless. You try not to let it get to you, but it gets to you, and then, in the middle of a particularly tense night, someone throws embers from the main fire into your circle. No one gets burned. Nothing catches. But it sends a message. So now you're standing in the middle of the camp with your hands out and your voice raised, trying not to sound angry, trying to sound like you still believe this is salvageable. The shaman is watching from a distance, leaning on his walking stick like it's a throne. His circle sits cross-legged, silent. Yours stands behind you, nervous and twitchy. This is a confrontation now, and no one wants to call it that, but everyone knows. You say, "We never meant to divide the camp." He says, "Then why did you build your own fire?" You say, "Because the path should have room for more than one voice." He says, "No one asked for another voice." And that's when someone throws the first stone. It doesn't hit anyone, but it flies, and that's enough. In seconds, the camp becomes chaos. Not war, not yet, but a storm, yelling, shoving, accusations. Someone dumps a pouch of herbs into the fire and screams, "Let the spirits sort it out!" Someone else takes a swing at someone's head with a cooking pan. You lose sight of the shaman. You lose sight of your people. You're trying to pull 2 women apart when a third grabs your arm and hisses, "This is your fault." Maybe it is. Here's your historical anchor. Hallucinogenic plants, rituals, and vision ceremonies weren't just personal experiences, they were social structures. And when those structures shifted, when someone new brought a new vision, things could fracture fast. Ancient accounts, both oral and written, describe entire communities splitting over who had the true version of the gods, over what the dreams meant, over whose trance spoke loudest, the quirky twist. Some of the oldest known conflicts didn't start over land or food, they started over visions. The wrong dream interpreted the wrong way, the wrong plant used by the wrong person. The line between divine insight and dangerous heresy was thin, and once crossed, it rarely got uncrossed. Debate time. Was this about belief or control? Some scholars argue these were proto-political power struggles in disguise, that the sacred was just a mask worn by early governance. Others believe it was deeper, that people truly believed their entire cosmology was at stake, that if the wrong person saw the wrong thing in the fire smoke, the sun might stop rising. Back in the camp, the fighting eventually slows. No blood, no bodies. Just bruises, missing bundles, shattered trust. People retreat to their fires, his and yours. The old circle smoulders with resentment. Yours buzzes with guilt and resolve. You sit by the flames, exhausted, surrounded by silence, and then, from the edge of the trees, a small group emerges. Outsiders, travellers. They've heard the noise, seen the smoke. They carry bundles of herbs and charms and carved stones you've never seen before. They approach cautiously, as if walking into the eye of a storm. You rise, nod, gesture for them to sit. They hesitate, look at the others. One of them, a woman with a necklace made of snail shells, says, "We brought a drink. It helps when the air is heavy. You don't know what's in it. You drink it anyway. It's bitter and grounding." Within minutes, the tension eases in your chest. The firelight feels less sharp. You exhale fully for the first time in hours. You offer the drink to others. A few accept. Even 1 or 2 from the old circle, once the shaman has gone to sleep. They sit across from you, eyes down, sipping slowly. There are no apologies. But the silence between you is less dangerous now. That night, you dream of fire, but not destruction. Just light. You wake to the scent of spice. Not food, not the cozy kind. This is sharp, resinous, unsettling. It seeps through the camp like fog, clinging to skin and smoke and the inside of your nose. You know the smell. Everyone does. It's the blend the shaman only burns for the big things. Births, deaths, omens, and most memorably, the time a bird fell from the sky with its feathers smoking and someone declared it a message from the gods. That blend, the pay attention smell. You step out of your shelter and see him already at the fire. Cloaked in bone necklaces and charcoal paint, he stands perfectly still as others gather, forming a loose ring around the flames. No one speaks, not yet. There's a heaviness in the air, like the camp is holding its breath. You feel it in your chest too, something's coming. Then you see what's beside him. Bundles, wrapped tight in woven fibres. You count 5, ritual bundles, and beside them, a large bowl filled with thick black liquid that reflects the firelight like oil. You've seen this before, but never with this many offerings, never with that look in his eyes. He raises a hand. Tonight, he says, we cleanse the path. There's no explanation, no invitation, just the command. You glance at the others. Your group is scattered through the crowd, quiet, watching. No one moves toward the bowl, but the shaman's followers do. One by one, they step forward, drink from the bowl, take a bundle, step back. You know what's in the drink, or at least you know what it does. You've tried it before in smaller doses, a powerful mixture of bark, seeds and root sap that strips your senses bare and leaves only what's essential. It doesn't show you visions, it removes them, it scrapes your mind clean. The last time, you sobbed for hours, not from pain, but from the overwhelming absence of anything at all. This time, it feels different. This is not a personal purge, this is something else. Someone whispers, he's trying to take it back. You nod. That's exactly what this is. A spiritual reset. A ritual not of exploration, but of erasure. He's reclaiming the path, not by arguing, not by punishing, but by overwhelming it with purity, with smoke, with sacrament, with spectacle. Here's your historical anchor. Across cultures, spiritual rituals weren't always additive. Sometimes they were subtractive. When new beliefs or practices emerged that challenged the dominant order, established shamans and priest figures would respond not with violence, but with purification. They'd burn herbs, sanctify spaces, conduct mass ceremonies to drive out foreign spirits or cleanse the community of contamination. It wasn't just belief, it was social immunity. The quirky twist. These purges weren't always successful. In some cases, the rituals backfired, creating deeper divisions or even converting participants to the very practices they were meant to erase. But they felt powerful. They felt like control, and often that was enough to maintain order. Debate corner. Were these rituals acts of spiritual defense or psychological warfare? Some scholars argue they were protective, meant to restore communal unity. Others say they were manipulation at its most elegant, framing dissent as pollution, then offering salvation in a cup. Back at the fire, a boy from your circle, young, eager, caught in the middle, steps forward and drinks. You don't stop him, you just watch as his face goes blank. He accepts a bundle, kneels beside the shaman, and stares into the flames. You feel your heart tighten. Someone beside you leans in. We should do our own. You blink. What? A ritual, they say. Not a fight. A story. Something bigger than arguing. You want to dismiss it, but you can't. They're right. This isn't a battle over herbs. It's a battle over meaning, over the stories people tell themselves in the dark when the visions fade, and you're not going to win by sitting at the edge of someone else's ceremony. So that night, you light a second fire. No shouting, no fanfare, just flames and music and memory. You brew a drink, not for silence but for song, a blend of the gifts you brought back from the travellers, the red dust, the humming root, a whisper of the beetle resin. You pass it slowly, carefully. No one's forced. Everyone chooses. As the fire crackles, someone begins to hum. Then another adds a second tone. Soon there's a low harmony in the air, a vibration that settles into your chest. You close your eyes and let it carry you, not up or out, but in. The drink doesn't blast the mind, it opens it gently. You don't see gods, you don't see visions, you see yourself, sitting beside a child version of you, both laughing at how scared you used to be. The others feel it too. Across the camp the shaman's fire burns higher. His circle chants, louder, more insistent. But here, your group just sings, not to drown them out, but to remember that this story has more than one voice. And in that moment you understand. It's not about one ritual replacing another. It's not about purging or proving or purification. It's about coexistence. Even if the old circle never accepts it, you've already done the one thing they feared most. You made your own meaning and shared it. Dawn doesn't break. It leaks in, slow and gold, dripping through the trees like sap. You're sitting by the coals of your fire, legs stretched, breath steaming in the crisp morning air. Everything smells like ash and pine and the faint sweetness of whatever plant someone burned around midnight. Around you, the others are stirring. Blankets shift. A few quiet murmurs. No one's speaking in full sentences yet, and honestly that feels right. After everything, words seem too sharp, too eager. Better to let the morning breathe for a while before slicing it up with opinions. The camp is still divided. That hasn't changed. But the edges have softened. Across the way, the shaman's fire is smaller than usual. He's there, as always. But today he's sitting rather than standing. Watching rather than guiding. His followers are fewer this morning. Some of the younger ones didn't return to his circle after last night. They're not in yours either, not yet. They're hovering, orbiting, waiting. No one says we won. That's not what this is. This was never about victory. This was about permission, about reminding people that not all paths to the sacred wear the same shoes. That divinity isn't a monopoly, that you can take the same herb, see different things, and still be worthy of speaking. You rise slowly, joints creaking, and begin walking the camp's perimeter. Not for any particular reason, just a habit now. You pass the detox cave, where someone's curled up in a blanket, muttering softly, "They'll be okay." You pass the flat rock where the girl first chewed the laughing root. There's a new carving there now, a spiral within a spiral. You smile. Her joke lives on. At the edge of the trees you find 3 people from a neighbouring camp. Strangers. They came sometime in the night and made no fuss. One of them has deep red paint across her forehead. Another carries a pouch of blue powder. They bow slightly when you greet them. "We heard your song," one of them says. "We've brought something for trade." You sit with them. No rush. They unpack their satchels. Dried flowers, unfamiliar seeds, a dark stick coated in wax. You don't recognise most of it, but your fingers tingle the way they always do when something has potential. One of them explains their ritual. It involves silence, shadows, and dancing with your eyes closed. You ask how it ends. She smiles. You just stop when you feel the sky open. Of course you do. Here's your historical anchor. As human tribes spread, they didn't just trade goods. They traded rituals. The earliest global networks weren't defined by gold or conquest, but by the exchange of mind. Practices moved. Ceremonies migrated. One tribe's vision became another's revelation. Sacred plants crossed rivers, mountains, oceans, centuries. They shaped not just beliefs, but civilizations. The quirky twist. Some rituals outlived the cultures that birthed them. Long after the language vanished, the ceremonies persisted, tweaked, renamed, remixed, but undeniably connected to ancient roots. There are rites still practiced today that trace their lineage back to forgotten fires like yours, whispered forward one night at a time. And the big debate, whether civilization came from these mind-altering traditions or in spite of them. Did organized religion, language and law bloom from the soil of hallucinated insight? Or did we suppress these early journeys in order to build something more stable, more controllable? Scholars argue. Evidence piles up. The truth, as always, sways like smoke. Back at the fire, you gather your circle. The newcomers are invited in, not tested, not questioned, just welcomed. The pouch of blue powder is placed next to your own collection, a strange, beautiful family of roots, mosses, resins and dust. Each one with its own story, its own voice. You pass the bowl, not to journey, just to share. Today isn't for breaking the sky. It's for building something beneath it. Someone tells a story you've heard before, but this time the ending changes. Someone else laughs so hard they nearly choke on tea. The girl with the carved spiral teaches a chant she dreamed last week. And in the lull that follows, a young boy, one who's never touched a vision plant in his life, stands and speaks without being asked. "I saw something," he says, blushing, eyes wide. "In my dream, I saw a mountain made of drums. Everyone waits." He swallows hard. "I think it was calling us." You nod. "Then maybe we should answer. Because this is what it's become. Not a war over what's real, but a garden. An open fire with room for new songs. A place where visions don't need validation to matter. Where the next great insight might come from a frog, a fungus, or a fever dream. Might come from someone who hasn't even started chewing yet. You look up at the sky, pale blue and full of birds. You feel the hum in your chest again, not from any herb or root or dust, but from the steady knowledge that this story is still going. You, the accidental psychonauts of prehistory, didn't just get high. You invented meaning, and you gave it away, one fire at a time. And now, as the embers of the last fire flicker low and the sky settles into that soft, endless indigo, you find yourself lying back in the grass, arms spread wide, the earth still warm beneath you. The story you've been living, of herbs and smoke, of frog venom and laughing roots, of conflict and communion, feels like a dream you're waking from slowly, one breath at a time. The camp is quiet. The drums have stilled. Even the stars seem to be holding their breath. You've watched humans stumble through their first sacred accidents. You've seen them get it gloriously right and, let's be honest, hilariously wrong. You've watched the high become the holy, the weird become wisdom, the fire become a pulpit. And somewhere along the way, through the roots and rituals, the hallucinated wars and the whispered trades, civilization emerged. Not in spite of those strange nights, but because of them. The mind wants meaning. Always has. And long before books or temples or laws, you reached for it the only way you knew how, by chewing the wrong leaf, breathing the right smoke, and listening very closely to what the inside of your skull had to say. And maybe you didn't always understand it. Maybe you still don't. But that's never stopped you before. So now, wherever you are, in a city, a forest, under a blanket in your room, earbuds in, phone screen dimmed, close your eyes. Listen for the drums, the fire, the frog, the girl who saw colour, the wind humming the shape of your breath. Because somewhere, in the roots of your roots, that first wild night is still unfolding, and you're still part of it.